She was supposed to say, "I do," to the man who bought her father's freedom. Instead, she said yes to the stranger with blood on his cuffs and a gun still warm in his hand. Alara Vance walked down that aisle to save a family that had already sold her, and walked out of it belonging to a man the world whispered about but never named. One wedding, 2 prisons, and a choice that would unravel an empire. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments and hit that like button. I want to see how far this story travels. Stay until the end. You won't want to miss what happens in that lakeside mansion. The dress didn't fit right. That was the first thing Alara Vance thought when she stood in front of the mirror at 8 that morning. Not "this is the happiest day of my life." Not "I look beautiful." Not any of the things the magazines promised a bride was supposed to feel. Just that the dress didn't fit right. The bodice pinched under her arms. The train was too heavy. The lace at her throat itched like a noose that hadn't finished tightening. She stared at the woman in the mirror and tried to find herself in there somewhere. The woman in the mirror had her face. Her dark hair, pinned up in a style that had taken 2 women an hour to build. Her mother's pearls, the only thing her mother had left behind besides a hospital bill and a handwritten note that said, "I'm sorry." The woman in the mirror had Alara's mouth and Alara's eyes, but the eyes were wrong. Hollow. The kind of eyes you saw on people being walked somewhere they didn't want to go. "You look stunning." The voice came from behind her. Alara didn't turn around. Her father stood in the doorway of the bridal suite, already in his tuxedo, already a little drunk. She could tell from the way he held the doorframe. Harold Vance had been a handsome man once, tall, with the kind of jaw that got him into boardrooms and out of trouble. That was before the gambling, before the loans. Before the loans had names, and the names had lawyers, and the lawyers had started coming to the house. "Thanks, Dad," she said, because that was what a daughter said. He walked in and stood behind her. She watched him in the mirror. He wouldn't meet her eyes. "Your mother would have been proud today," he said. No, she wouldn't. The words came out flat. She hadn't meant to say them. They'd just fallen out, the way things fall out when you haven't slept in 3 days. Harold flinched. For a second she thought he might argue with her, tell her she was being cruel, tell her she didn't understand. Wow. But he just looked down at the carpet, at his shined black shoes, at anything that wasn't his daughter. "Alara." "It's fine, Dad. I know. We've talked about it. Victor is a good man." She turned around then, slowly. The train of the dress dragged on the carpet. "Victor Marchetti is 47 years old," she said. "He's been married twice. The first wife died in a car accident nobody investigated. The second one signed an NDA so thick you could kill a man with it. He owns half the freight on the eastern seaboard, and the other half is scared of him. And we're getting married in," she glanced at the clock on the wall, "48 minutes. Alara, tell me one good thing about him. One thing that has nothing to do with money." Her father opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "He kept us from losing the house." "He bought me," she said. "Say it, just once. I'd like to hear somebody in this family say it out loud." Harold's hands were trembling. She noticed that. She used to think her father was the strongest man alive. She'd been wrong about a lot of things. "Sweetheart, please, not today." "Yeah." She turned back to the mirror. "Not today." There was a long silence. Outside, through the stained glass windows of St. Catherine's, she could hear the murmur of 300 guests filing into the pews. Cellos tuning, someone laughing too loud. The low hum of power, old money, older secrets, all gathered in one place for the event of the season. Victor Marchetti's wedding. Not hers. His. "I'll walk you down the aisle," her father said quietly. She didn't answer. He left. The wedding coordinator came in at 9:15. Her name was Denise, and she had a headset and a clipboard and the kind of smile that never touched her eyes. She told Alara she looked gorgeous. She told her the flowers were perfect. She told her the groom was waiting. Alara wanted to laugh. She wanted to sit down on the floor in the dress that cost more than her college tuition and laugh until someone dragged her out of the building. Instead, she said, "Okay." "Okay? I'm ready." Denise beamed. "Beautiful. Follow me, sweetheart." Sweetheart. That was what Victor called her too. Sweetheart, with that small, clipped smile, the way a man might call a dog. He'd called her that on their first date, at a restaurant where she didn't recognize a single item on the menu, and he'd ordered for her without asking. He'd called her that the night he proposed, in front of her father, in her father's study, with a ring so big it looked fake. Sweetheart, this makes sense for both of us. He'd never once asked if she loved him. He'd never once asked if she liked him. She hadn't cried when he slid the ring on her finger. Her father had cried. Victor had watched her father cry with the flat satisfaction of a man watching a loan agreement get signed. That had been 6 months ago. Now she was walking down the hallway of St. Catherine's Cathedral, and the dress was too heavy, and the pearls at her throat felt like teeth. The doors of the sanctuary opened, the organ swelled, 300 faces turned. Alara took her father's arm. He was trembling harder now, or maybe that was her, and she began to walk. The aisle was longer than she remembered from the rehearsal. The cathedral smelled like lilies and old wood and expensive perfume. She kept her eyes forward because if she looked into the pews, she'd see them, Victor's men in their dark suits standing along the walls like a black border. Watching. Not her. Watching the crowd. Watching the doors. That should have told her something. She'd think about it later. At the end of the aisle, Victor Marchetti waited. He was smiling. It was the smile of a man who had won. Silver hair swept back, tuxedo immaculate, a white rose in his lapel. His hands folded neatly in front of him, like he was about to give a speech at a shareholders' meeting. Next to him stood the priest, and next to the priest stood Victor's best man, Dominic, his cousin, his enforcer, a man whose knuckles she'd seen split on a wine glass once, at dinner, because a waiter had brought the wrong year. She kept walking. The music played. She walked past faces she recognized, her father's business partners, their wives. She walked past faces she didn't recognize. A few of them smiled at her. None of them seemed to notice she wasn't smiling back. Halfway down the aisle, she caught sight of a stranger. He was sitting in his back on the groom's side, alone. A tall man in a charcoal suit, no tie, collar open. Dark hair, olive skin. A face you didn't quite see at first and then couldn't stop seeing. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the altar, at Victor. And he was smiling too. But his smile was different. His smile looked like a man watching a building he'd already set on fire. Alara's feet kept moving. Her brain caught up 3 steps later. Who is that? She didn't know. She'd helped plan the guest list. Or rather, she'd been handed a list and told to memorize the important names. She'd memorized them. She didn't know this man. She reached the altar. Her father kissed her cheek. His lips were cold. "I'm sorry," he whispered. She wanted to ask him for what? The wedding, the debt, her whole life. But he was already stepping away, already being folded into the front pew, already becoming one more face in the crowd that was about to watch her disappear. Victor took her hand. His grip was firm, dry. He was wearing a new cologne, something expensive and cold, like metal. "You look lovely, sweetheart." "Thank you." "Nervous?" "No." He smiled. "Good girl." The priest began to speak. Alara didn't hear the words. She heard sounds, the slow cadence of Latin, then English, then something that might have been a reading from a book. But they passed over her like water. She stared at the altar, at the candles, at the flowers. Too many flowers. So many she could smell them sweating in the heat of the cathedral. She thought about the night she'd tried to leave. 3 months ago. She'd packed a duffel bag. 2 changes of clothes, her passport, $300 in cash she'd saved from birthday envelopes since she was 16. She'd gotten as far as the driveway of her father's house at 2 in the morning before the headlights came on. 4 cars. Black SUVs. Men stepping out of them with the relaxed posture of people who were not afraid of anything. Dominic had been in the lead car. "Miss Vance," he'd said, in that mild, polite voice that was somehow more frightening than if he'd shouted. "Mr. Marchetti wanted me to make sure you got back inside safely." He'd taken the duffel bag from her. He hadn't touched her. He'd just taken the bag, tossed it in the back of the SUV, and stood there, patient, still, smiling, until she'd turned around and walked back into the house. She hadn't tried again. She hadn't needed to be told. She'd understood. "Bocus, and to you, Alara Marie Vance?" The priest's voice caught up to her. She blinked. The whole cathedral was watching her. Victor was watching her. His hand was tight on hers now, too tight. Take this man, Victor Alexander Marchetti, to be your lawfully wedded husband. This was the moment. She told herself she would say it. She'd practiced in the mirror. I do. 2 words. You could say them the way you said thank you to a waiter. You could say them the way you said goodnight to a stranger in a hotel hallway. 2 syllables. 1 breath. She'd practiced. She'd promised her father. She'd promised herself. She would walk through this, and she would come out the other side, and she would figure out how to survive the rest of her life later, in private, where no one could see. She opened her mouth. To have and to hold, from this day forward, the back doors of the cathedral slammed open. The sound was enormous, metal on marble. The whole sanctuary turned at once. The organ stopped mid-note with a small wheezing sound, like an animal losing its breath. For a second, Alara thought it was a latecomer, some guest rushing in, embarrassed, whispering apologies. Then the screaming started. Dad! The first gunshot was so loud it didn't sound like a gunshot at all. It sounded like the building cracking in half. A chandelier at the back of the sanctuary exploded. Glass rained down on the rear pews. Somebody shrieked, a high, thin, animal sound. And then suddenly everyone was moving. Everyone was standing. Everyone was scrambling over the pews in $5,000 shoes. Get down! That was Dominic. He had a gun. She hadn't known he was carrying. Of course he was carrying. Of course all of them were. Every one of Victor's men along the walls had their hands inside their jackets now, and the jackets were coming open, and the guns were coming out. Victor's hand was still clamped around hers. Stay with me, he hissed. His voice was different now. The smooth baritone was gone. In its place was something cold and fast and furious. Do not let go of my hand, Alara. Do you hear me? Another shot, then another, then a whole volley of them, from somewhere near the back, and the men along the walls returning fire. And the cathedral filled up with the flat, hard, cracking noise of a thing Alara had only ever heard in movies. She saw Dominic go down. 1 second he was lifting his weapon. The next he was on his back on the marble floor, his arms out, his mouth open, a red flower spreading across the white of his shirt. His eyes stayed open. He didn't blink. He didn't move. She had never seen a dead man before. Her brain refused to put the image together properly. It kept sliding off the fact of him. He's sleeping. He tripped. He'll get up. The priest was gone. She didn't know when the priest had disappeared, but the altar was empty now, just candles and a cross, and the long white rope of her train pooled on the carpet. Victor was dragging her. Move, he was snarling. Move, move, move. He had her by the wrist, and he was pulling her toward the side of the altar, toward a small door she hadn't noticed, and she was stumbling in the heavy dress, and her shoes kept catching on the hem, and she thought very distantly, this is what it looks like when someone decides you're a thing they own. The side door opened. Victor shoved her through it first, because he wasn't stupid, because he knew what was on the other side of doors you hadn't checked. She stumbled into the corridor. 2 men were waiting. They weren't Victor's. They weren't wearing the black on black of his detail. They were in gray suits, well cut, quiet. One of them had a pistol already raised. The other one was reaching into his jacket, unhurried, as if he had all the time in the world. Victor saw them a half second after Alara did. She felt his hand clench on her wrist like a vice. He was trying to pull her back through the doorway, back into the cathedral, back into the screaming and the gunfire. The first man raised his pistol past her shoulder and fired twice. Alara felt the shots in her chest, 2 hard slaps of air, and Victor's hand went slack around her wrist and then fell away entirely. She didn't look. She couldn't look. Something hot had hit the side of her face, and she didn't want to know what it was. Miss Vance? The man with the pistol was speaking to her. His voice was calm. His Italian accent was very faint. He hadn't lowered the weapon yet, but he wasn't pointing it at her. Please come with me. She didn't move. She couldn't move. She was standing in the side corridor of a cathedral, in a wedding dress, with 300 strangers screaming on the other side of a door that was still swinging shut behind her, and her fiancé was on the floor behind her, and her feet were anchored to the marble as if they'd grown there. The man's gaze flicked past her, back toward the sanctuary. His jaw tightened. We don't have much time, per favore. He is coming. Just a moment more. She heard footsteps then. Measured, unhurried. The footsteps of a man walking through a battle the way another man might walk through a garden. A third figure rounded the corner. She'd seen him already. From the aisle. The stranger in the charcoal suit, sitting in the back pew, smiling at the altar like a man enjoying a private joke. He wasn't smiling now. He stopped 3 feet from her, and for a long second he just looked at her, or really looked, head to toe, the way a man looks at a problem he's solving. And Alara realized with a cold clarity that would stay with her for the rest of her life that she had no idea which of them was the rescue and which of them was the robbery. Up close he was younger than she'd thought. Mid-30s, maybe? His hair was disheveled now, a fine mist of something across one cheekbone, his collar open, his cuffs were dark. She didn't let herself think about what was on them. His eyes were gray, not cold exactly, just very still. "Alara Vance," he said. She nodded. She didn't know how she nodded. "My name is Rafael DeLuca." He paused, just briefly, as if giving her a moment to recognize the name. She didn't. She would later. "I know today has not gone the way you were told it would. I know this is a great deal to take in. I am going to ask you to trust me for the next 90 seconds. Who are you? Someone who does not want you to marry Victor Marchetti. That's not an answer. A ghost of something, a smile almost there and gone, flickered at the corner of his mouth. No, he said. It isn't. Behind her, through the swinging door, another gunshot. A man screaming. The heavy thud of a body hitting marble. Rafael DeLuca did not flinch. He kept his eyes on hers. "Miss Vance," he said, "I'm going to extend my hand. You're going to have a choice. You can take it and walk out of this building with me and live. Or you can stay here and wait for whoever comes through that door next and hope that they are kinder to you than the man you were about to marry. I would like very much for you to choose the first option, but it must be your choice." He extended his hand. It was steady. There was blood across the knuckles. Not his. Or maybe some of it was his. Alara stared at the hand. She thought about her father, sitting in the front pew, sobbing into his handkerchief while his daughter was sold for the price of his mistakes. She thought about Victor, who had called her sweetheart with the satisfaction of a man locking a cage. She thought about Dominic, dead on the cathedral floor, the man who had smiled politely while he confiscated her duffel bag. She thought about her mother, who had left a note that said, "I'm sorry." She thought about all the people in the pews behind her, 300 witnesses, watching the event of the season turn into the story of the decade. She reached out. She took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, warm and dry and firm, and she felt something in her chest that wasn't quite relief and wasn't quite terror. Something older. Something she didn't have a word for yet. Rafael DeLuca's expression didn't change. He simply turned, pulling her along with him, and the 2 men in the gray suits fell into step at her shoulders, forming a wedge around her. "Keep your head down," Rafael said. "Where are we?" "Head down, Miss Vance. Please." She ducked her head. They moved. The corridor opened into a small sacristy, and the sacristy opened onto a side lot where the catering trucks were parked. The air outside was shockingly cold. The day had gone overcast while she was inside. A thin rain had started. She felt it on her shoulders, on her face. The dress, the ridiculous, heavy, hated dress, began to soak at the hem. There was a car waiting, black, low. The engine running, a driver behind the wheel, 2 more men standing by the rear door. One of them opened it as they approached. Rafael stopped at the car. He turned to her. He still had her hand. "Once you get in this car," he said, very quietly, "certain things cannot be undone." She looked up at him. Rain was beating on her lashes. Her mother's pearls were cold against her throat. "What kind of things?" she said. "You will not be going home." "I didn't have a home." Something passed behind his eyes. She didn't know what it was. It was there for a fraction of a second, and then it was gone, packed away into whatever vault he kept such things in. "Get in the car, Miss Vance." She got in the car. Shab. The inside of the car smelled like leather and something faintly herbal, rosemary maybe, or juniper. She slid across the seat and tucked her legs under the bulk of the dress. Rafael got in after her. The door closed. The car pulled out of the lot before she'd even found the seatbelt. Through the tinted rear window, she saw the cathedral receding. She saw police lights arriving. She saw a few guests stumbling out onto the front steps in their finery, confused, crying, phones already up. Someone was filming. Of course someone was filming. She watched St. Catherine's Cathedral grow small and then disappear behind a row of buildings. She was breathing. She noticed that. She was breathing hard and her hands were shaking and her teeth were chattering even though it wasn't that cold in the car. She pressed her knees together to stop them from knocking. Raphael was silent beside her. He was looking out the opposite window, giving her, she realized, a kind of privacy. He wasn't staring at her. He wasn't crowding her. He was simply present and still, and letting her come apart in the small space next to him without acknowledging that she was coming apart. That kindness, or whatever it was, somehow undid her faster than anything else could have. The first sob hit her like a punch. She clamped her hand over her mouth. "It's all right," he said quietly. "Don't." "All right." She pressed her forehead against the cold window, and she cried, silently, her shoulders shaking, the dress bunched around her like a dead animal. She cried for about a minute, maybe two. She wasn't counting. When she was done, she sat up, wiped her face with the heel of her hand, smearing mascara, she didn't care, and took a deep breath. "Okay," she said. "Okay? Tell me what's happening." He turned to look at her then. Really look. His gray eyes moved across her face. He didn't speak for a moment. She had the strange sense that he was measuring something, deciding what to give her. "Victor Marchetti is not the man your father told you he is. I'm aware. He is a good deal worse than even you think. I'd guess that too." The corner of his mouth moved. Again, that almost smile, the one that seemed to surprise him as much as it did her. "There are things," he said, "that you know, that you don't know you know. You possess something, Miss Vance. You've possessed it for some time, and there are men who would have killed you for it the moment Victor Marchetti was finished with you, which would have been some months from now, at most. Perhaps a year, if he found you entertaining." She stared at him. "I'm sorry," she said. "You're going to have to say that again, because it sounded like you just told me that my fiancé was planning to murder me." "Your fiancé was not going to get the chance," Raphael said. His voice was even. "I did not allow it. That is why we are in this car." She didn't answer. She couldn't. "Miss Vance." "Elara." "Pardon?" "My name is Elara. If we're going to keep having this conversation, you can use it." He inclined his head, a small, formal gesture. It looked oddly antique. "Elara," he said. The name sounded different in his mouth than it did in anyone else's. "You're safe. You will remain safe. That is my responsibility now, and I take my responsibilities seriously. Beyond that, I will ask you to be patient. What I have to explain will take longer than this drive." "Where are we going?" "A house, outside the city, near the water. You will be comfortable there. You will have everything you need." "Will I be able to leave?" He hesitated, just for a second. It was the first hesitation she'd seen from him. "Not yet," he said. "Then I'm not safe. I'm just somewhere else." He studied her. His eyes didn't leave hers. "That is a fair observation," he said quietly. "I will not insult you by arguing it." Elara turned back to the window. The city was behind them now. They were on a highway, the sky darkening, the rain falling harder. Somewhere south and east, a cathedral was swarming with police and paramedics and reporters. Somewhere in that cathedral, Victor Marchetti was on the floor with 2 shots in his back, and her father was probably still in the front pew, sobbing into his handkerchief, and his daughter's wedding dress was soaking rain in the back of a stranger's car. She closed her eyes. "I don't even know you," she said. "No. I don't know if I just saved my life or ended it. You did not do either, not yet. You bought yourself time. That is what today was." She opened her eyes and looked at him. "Time for what?" He didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was softer than it had been. "Time to decide who you are," he said, "when nobody is telling you who to be." The drive took almost 2 hours. The city gave way to suburbs, the suburbs to small towns, the small towns to farmland, and the farmland to a long stretch of road that ran between tall pines. Elara watched it all through the tinted glass. She didn't speak. Raphael didn't push her. The driver didn't speak either. The car smelled like rosemary and wet wool, her dress, and the soft leather of the seats. Sometime after the hour mark, Raphael made a phone call. He spoke in low, rapid Italian. She caught one word, Marchetti, and then a short, sharp exchange that ended with him saying something that sounded like an order. He hung up. He slid the phone back into his inner pocket. He didn't explain. She didn't ask. At some point, she realized she was freezing. Her dress was wet. Her hair was falling out of its pins. Her makeup was a disaster. Her hands still had the faint smell of someone else's cologne on them where Victor had gripped her wrist. She wanted a shower. She wanted a knife. She wanted to sleep for a week. The car turned off the main road. They passed through a gate, wrought iron, tall, set between stone pillars, and onto a private drive that curved through a forest. For a while there was nothing but trees. Then the trees opened and she saw the house. Or the mansion. You couldn't really call it a house. It sat at the edge of a lake, low and long and made of pale stone, with tall windows that glowed golden against the dark gray of the storm. The roof was slate. The drive circled a fountain that was not, at the moment, running. There were more black cars in the drive. There were men standing in doorways along the walls of the courtyard, at the corners of the property. She saw at least 6 before she stopped counting. The car pulled up to the front steps. Raphael got out first. He came around to her side, opened the door, and offered his hand again. For a moment, she just looked at it. "Is it always going to be like this?" she said. "Me taking your hand to go somewhere I didn't agree to go?" "I hope not." "Answer the question." He held her gaze. "For tonight," he said. "Yes." She took his hand. She stepped out of the car. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. Her dress was ruined. The hem dragged through a puddle as she walked up the front steps, and she thought, with a flash of something close to hysterical amusement, Denise, the wedding coordinator, would be having a stroke right now. The front doors opened before they reached them. An older woman stood in the doorway. Gray hair in a tight bun, dark clothes, a face that had seen things and chosen not to comment on any of them. "Mr. DeLuca, Serafina, this is Miss Vance." "Miss Vance?" The woman inclined her head. No surprise and no questions. As if men came home with soaking wet brides all the time. "The East Suite is prepared. A bath is drawn. Clothes have been laid out. I assumed her size from the photograph." "The photograph?" Elara said. Neither of them answered her. Raphael turned to her. "Serafina will show you upstairs," he said. "She will bring you anything you need. There are guards at the entrances of the house, but not in the wing you will occupy. Your door locks from the inside. I want you to understand that. From the inside." Elara stared at him. "Eat something," he said. "Sleep if you can. We will speak in the morning." "That's it?" "That's it." You're not going to—" Something gentled in his face. It was almost worse than the blankness. "Elara," he said, "whatever you think is going to happen in this house tonight, whatever story you have written about a man like me in a house like this with a woman in a dress like that, nothing is going to happen. You are going to go upstairs. You are going to take that dress off. You are going to sleep. And in the morning, we will begin." "Begin what?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Whatever comes next," he said. He nodded to Serafina. He turned. He walked back down the steps toward a side wing of the house and did not look back. Elara stood there in the doorway of a stranger's mansion in a wet wedding dress, with a woman she didn't know waiting to take her upstairs, and she thought, "I have made a terrible mistake." And then, immediately after it, without meaning to, or maybe I haven't, the bath was hot. The suite was enormous. Serafina did not speak unnecessarily. She led Elara through a hallway lined with dark wood and old paintings, up a curving staircase, down another hallway, and into a set of rooms that were larger than the entire first floor of her father's house. A sitting area, a bedroom, a bathroom with a tub that could have held 3 people, a walk-in closet that already, impossibly, had clothes in it, women's clothes, in her size. "How?" Elara began. "The bath will cool," Serafina said gently, and that was the end of that. Elara locked the door. She checked the lock twice. He had told her the door locked from the inside. She wanted to see it for herself. The mechanism was heavy brass, old. It worked. She peeled herself out of the wedding dress. It took nearly 20 minutes. There were buttons up the back that she couldn't reach, and hooks along the bodice, and a corset structure underneath that she had to fight her way out of like a soldier leaving armor. By the time she was done, the dress was in a crumpled heap on the marble floor of the bathroom, a small white ghost of her mourning. and she was naked and shivering and could see in the mirror the red half-moon of Victor's grip still pressed into the skin of her wrist. She got in the bath. The water was almost too hot. She let it be. She sank down until it came over her shoulders, and she closed her eyes. And for the first time since she'd opened her eyes that morning, she stopped pretending. She cried. Not quietly, not politely. She cried until the water went lukewarm. She cried for the girl in the mirror that morning. She cried for her mother. She cried for the version of her life that she'd stopped hoping for years ago and had only realized tonight she was still mourning. When she was done, she got out. She dried off. She put on a robe that had been laid across the bed, soft, gray, simple. She did not put on any of the other clothes in the closet. She was not ready to wear clothes a stranger had chosen for her. The robe was enough. There was food on a tray in the sitting room. She hadn't heard anyone come in. Soup, bread, a glass of something dark red she did not touch. She sat on the edge of the bed and ate half the bread. She did not taste it. She walked to the window. The suite faced the lake. The rain had stopped. The clouds had broken a little. In the last of the gray evening light, she could see the water, flat, silver, enormous, a long wooden dock, a single light burning at the end of it. Beyond that, nothing but trees and the shape of low hills in the distance. She stood at the window for a long time. Somewhere in this house, Rafael De Luca was doing whatever Rafael De Luca did, making phone calls, meeting with men in suits, dealing with whatever he had set in motion today when he'd walked into a cathedral full of Victor Marchetti's people and walked out with the bride. She pressed her palm flat against the glass. She did not know what he wanted from her. She did not know what he meant when he said she possessed something. She did not know what it meant that he had sent her upstairs alone, with a door that locked from the inside, when he could have done anything he wanted. She did not know, yet, what any of this was. But for the first time in 6 months, for the first time perhaps in years, she was standing in a room where no one was telling her who to be. The dress was on the bathroom floor. The pearls were on the vanity. Victor was dead, probably, or dying. Her father was not in this house. Dominic was not in this house. The wedding was over, and she was still here. She watched the single light burning at the end of the dock until her eyes blurred, and she thought about a phrase he had said in the car. Time to decide who you are when nobody is telling you who to be. She didn't know who that was. She was going to have to find out. She pulled the robe tighter around herself. She walked back to the bed. She sat down on the edge of the mattress, in a house she did not own, in a country she had lived in all her life and had never seen, and she stared at her hands in her lap. The wrists still marked, the left one still ringless, the nails chipped where she'd pulled off the manicure during the drive. And she waited for something inside her to tell her what to feel. Nothing did. She lay down on top of the covers. She did not get under them. She pulled a corner of the duvet up over her shoulder. Her eyes closed. Outside, the light at the end of the dock kept burning, steady and small against the dark. And in a different wing of the same house, a man she did not know was standing at his own window with a glass in his hand, looking at the same lake and thinking about her. Neither of them slept that night. Both of them pretended to. She woke at some gray hour she couldn't name, in a bed too big for one person, with a sore throat from crying and no idea where she was. For about 3 seconds, it was a normal morning. The ceiling was unfamiliar but not frightening. Her hair smelled like someone else's shampoo. She heard a bird somewhere, a real bird, not a city bird, not a pigeon. And she thought very peacefully, I'm somewhere nice. Then she remembered. The cathedral, the shots, Dominic on the marble, Victor's hand going slack around her wrist, the stranger with the gray eyes and the blood on his cuffs, the long car ride, the lake, the woman who had laid out clothes in her size because apparently someone had been sending photographs. Alara sat up, slowly. The robe had twisted around her in the night. Her neck ached. She pulled her hair back from her face and looked at the room in daylight for the first time, and it was still enormous. The rug alone probably cost more than her father's car. The curtains were heavy linen. There was a small writing desk by the window, and a chair upholstered in something that wasn't quite any color she could name. She got up. Her legs were unsteady. She walked to the window and opened the curtains the rest of the way. The lake was a sheet of pale metal under a thin winter sun. The dock was empty now. The single light she'd stared at last night had been turned off, and the whole scene looked like a painting that somebody had hung in the room to keep her calm. It wasn't working. She crossed to the bathroom. The wedding dress was gone. Somebody had come in while she slept and taken it. She stood very still in the middle of the bathroom and tried to decide how she felt about that. On the one hand, she hadn't wanted to see it again. On the other, someone had been in her room. The door had been locked. She was sure it had been locked. She opened the bathroom door and tested the hallway. The lock still worked. She checked it 3 times. Either she had been wrong, or somebody in this house had a key to a door she had locked from the inside. Neither of those possibilities made her feel any better. She got dressed, not in anything Serafina had laid out. She didn't trust a stranger's taste yet, and she wasn't ready to wear clothes bought for her from a photograph she had never posed for. She picked the plainest things she could find in the closet. Dark jeans, a soft cream sweater, socks, no shoes. If she wasn't leaving, she wasn't putting on shoes. She did her hair with her fingers. She did not look for makeup. The woman in the mirror had red eyes and no lipstick and looked, for the first time in months, something close to her own face. A soft knock. She froze. "Miss Vance?" "Serafina." Alara opened the door a few inches. "Yes?" "Mr. DeLuca asks if you would join him for breakfast." "What if I say no?" Serafina's face did not change. "Then I will bring a tray up for you, and he will eat alone." Alara considered. The easier thing was to stay upstairs, lock the door, wait for whatever was coming in this house to come to her. The harder thing was to walk down those stairs and look the stranger from yesterday in the face in daylight. She had spent the last 6 months doing the easier thing. "I'll come down," she said. Serafina inclined her head. "I will wait here." The staircase was long. She took it slowly, one hand on the banister, because her knees were still weak and because she didn't want to arrive out of breath. At the bottom, the house opened out. High ceilings, tall windows, more light than she'd expected. A hallway, a living room the size of her father's ground floor, a library glimpsed through an open door, walls of books all the way up. Men stood at corners of the house the way she'd seen last night, but in the morning light they looked less like guards and more like furniture. They did not look at her. She had the strong sense they had been told not to. Serafina led her through a set of glass doors into a room that overlooked the lake. A breakfast room, she supposed, though calling it that felt absurd. There was a long table of pale wood and a sideboard of food, coffee, fruit, bread, eggs under silver. And at the near end of the table, Rafael DeLuca was standing up as she came in. He was in a different suit. No tie again. No blood on the cuffs. His hair was damp, combed back. His face had the particular tiredness of a man who had slept less than 3 hours and was pretending otherwise. "Good morning," he said. "Is it?" A small movement at the corner of his mouth. Not a smile. The idea of one. "Please, sit. Eat whatever you like. There is no correct order." She sat. There was a plate in front of her already, plain white, heavy china. She didn't reach for it. Serafina poured coffee for both of them and left the room. Alara noticed the click of the door closing. She noticed that they were alone in a glass room at the edge of a lake, with armed men somewhere in the trees, and she tried to make her shoulders loosen, and could not. Raphael sat back down. He did not pick up his fork. "How did you sleep?" he asked. "I didn't." "I know. Because someone was watching my window?" "Because I was not sleeping either, and I assumed." She looked at him. She couldn't read him at all. Last night she had been too frightened to try. This morning she was simply tired, and tiredness made her honest. "Somebody came into my room," she said, "last night, while I was asleep." His expression shifted, just faintly. "The dress?" "Yes." "Serafina. She has a master key. It was her judgment. She believed you would not want to see it in the morning. If that was a misjudgment, I apologize. It will not happen again." "The door locks from the inside," she said. "You told me." "It locks from the inside," he said. "Against me. Against my men. Not against Serafina, who runs this house and has for 9 years. That was a line I failed to draw clearly last night. I am drawing it now. From this morning on, no one enters that room without your permission, her included. If she needs to collect anything, she will knock. If you do not answer, she will leave. That is a rule of this house now. I will tell her myself." Alara watched him while he said it. He wasn't performing. She'd grown up around performers. Her father was one. Victor had been a master. Men who said the right thing because they knew it was the right thing, and because they knew you knew that too. So the whole conversation became a small dance of lies nobody bothered to name. This wasn't that. He was talking to her the way a man talks when he has decided to tell the truth, because lying is more work than he feels like doing. She didn't trust it. She didn't quite disbelieve it either. "Okay," she said. He nodded, once. She reached for the coffee. Her hand was steady. Small victory. She took a sip and set the cup down and folded her hands in her lap and said, "Talk." "Pardon?" "You said we'd talk in the morning. It's the morning. Talk." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he set his own cup down. He leaned back in his chair. He did not cross his arms. He did not steeple his fingers. He did none of the small performances of power that men like to do when they were about to tell a woman something they believed she would not like. "3 months ago," he said, "a man named Daniel Ortiz tried to leave Victor Marchetti's organization." "I don't know that name." "You don't need to. He was an accountant. A good one. He had been with Marchetti for 11 years. He had 3 children. He wanted out. He approached a federal task force I have certain relationships with, and in exchange for immunity and relocation, he agreed to hand over a ledger." A ledger. A record of 18 years of transactions, payments, offshore accounts, names of officials, judges, law enforcement, the network that kept Victor Marchetti untouchable for a generation. Daniel Ortiz's ledger was the single most dangerous document in the state of New York. He was killed on the 9th of October in the parking garage of a Radisson in White Plains. Before he could hand it over, she said nothing. She had not known any of this. She had known something was wrong, Of course she had known something was wrong, but she had told herself the thing that was wrong was her future, her father, her body being traded for a house. She had not understood the shape of the thing she was being traded into. Marchetti's people recovered what they believed was the ledger, Raphael said. They tore apart Ortiz's apartment, his office, his car. They got everything he had on him the night he was killed. They believed it was over. Then, 1 week later, a package arrived at your father's house. Her stomach moved. "It was not addressed to your father. It was addressed to you." She stopped. She searched through the last 3 months in her head the way you search through a drawer. I don't remember a package." "You wouldn't. It was small. Ortiz had met you once, at a charity dinner last spring. You spoke with him for perhaps 4 minutes. He told his wife afterward that you had kind eyes. His wife told us this 2 days ago, when we found her." "Found her?" "She has been hiding, for very good reasons. She's safe now." Elara stared at him. The room had gone very quiet. The lake outside the glass was very still. "What was in the package?" "A book," Raphael said. "A novel, The Count of Monte Cristo, I believe. I got a copy of—" Her mouth was dry. "Somebody sent me a copy of that book at the end of September. I thought—" There was a card. It said, "Thought you would enjoy this." No signature. I assumed it was one of my father's business friends. One of the ones who, after the engagement, started sending things, trying to get on Victor's good side through me. "Where is the book now, Elara?" She closed her eyes. The card table in her bedroom, under a stack of unopened thank you notes. She had not read the book. She had not opened it. It had sat there for 2 months while she went to dress fittings and wrote place cards and learned how to set a formal table for 12. "My father's house," she said. "My bedroom, top of my writing desk, under a pile of stuff." Raphael exhaled slowly. Something changed in his posture, a small release just in the shoulders, and she realized, with a small cold shock, that he had not been sure. He had guessed. He had bet everything yesterday on a guess. "We recovered it at 4 o'clock this morning," he said. "One of my people. Your father was in police custody. The house was empty." "Police custody?" "He was a witness to what happened in the cathedral. He will be released today. He is not charged with anything." "He wouldn't be," she said flatly. "Of course he wouldn't." Raphael did not comment on that. "What's in the book?" she asked. "We opened it an hour ago." Ortiz hollowed out the center of the pages. Inside was a flash drive the size of a fingernail, encrypted. "We are working on the encryption now. If it is what we believe it is the ledger. All of it. 18 years. Every name. The room tilted slightly. She put her hand on the edge of the table. So that's why. Yes. That's why you took me. Yes. That's why Victor was marrying me. Not because of my father's debt, because he knew. He knew Ortiz had sent it to me. He didn't know for certain. He suspected. He could not search your father's house without tipping his hand to people inside his own organization. The wedding was the cleanest path. Once you were his wife, he could control what you owned, control what came into your possession, burn anything he needed to burn. And his voice did not change, but something in the air around it did. After a suitable period, when your father's debts were forgiven and no one was watching anymore, he would have arranged for you to disappear. Not unkindly, perhaps, but permanently. She looked down at her hands. The left one still didn't have a ring on it. The wrist still had a faint red mark where Victor had grabbed her yesterday. She looked at that mark for a long time. She thought about the first wife in the car accident, the second wife with the thick NDA. She thought, I was going to be the third. Elara. She didn't look up. You are safe, he said very quietly. You are not in that story anymore. That is over. Am I in a new story or a new version of the old one? He didn't answer right away. That, he said, is what you and I have to work out. They didn't finish breakfast. She managed a few bites of bread. He ate a little more than she did, not much. Somewhere between her third cup of coffee and his second, a phone buzzed in his jacket and he excused himself and stepped to the far end of the room to take it. She watched him through the glass wall that divided the breakfast room from a smaller sitting area. He kept his voice low. He turned his back to her. She wasn't meant to hear, and she didn't try. When he came back, his face had shifted. Not worse, just harder. We have a problem, he said. Only one? The almost smile again. Gone almost before it arrived. The encryption on the drive. It is not a standard protection. It is keyed to something specific, a phrase, or a number, or a word, something Ortiz chose that only a certain person would know. You think it's me? I think it could be you. I met the man once, for 4 minutes. You told him your name. He must have remembered something about the conversation. Something you said, something he associated with you. It would not be a password you chose. It would be a password he chose based on you, something he believed you would know or would guess if you ever thought to look. I don't know what to say to that. Walk me through the 4 minutes. I don't remember them clearly. Try. She tried. She was sitting in a chair in a glass room overlooking a lake, wearing somebody else's sweater, with an encrypted flash drive somewhere downstairs that might bring down half the crooked machinery of the state, and a man across the table waiting to hear what she and a dead accountant had said to each other at a charity dinner 7 months ago. It was at the Hyacinth Gala, she said slowly. My father made me go. I didn't want to. I was wearing a red dress. It was hideous. I hated it. The bodice was too tight. I remember I kept pulling at it. I was at the bar getting water because I didn't want to drink anything they were serving, and this man came up beside me and ordered a club soda. He looked uncomfortable, like he'd rather be anywhere else. I thought, well, at least I'm not alone. Did you speak first, or did he? I did. I said something like, are you here because you want to be or because your wife made you? And he laughed, and he said, my wife, and every boss I've ever had. And I said I understood that. And we talked about, she frowned, books. We talked about books. He said he read on the train to work. I asked what he was reading. He said, she stopped. Raphael was watching her very carefully now. He said he was reading The Count of Monte Cristo, she said slowly. Again. He said it was the 3rd time he'd read it. I asked why, and he said, she closed her eyes, tried to hear it. He said because of what it teaches you about patience. A long silence. Patience, Raphael said. That was the word he used. I remember because I thought it was a strange answer. Most people would have said revenge. It's a book about revenge. But he said patience. Anything else? I asked if his wife read it. He said she didn't like long books. He said she reads mostly for the ending. I read for the middle. Then somebody called me back to the table. He said it was nice to meet me. I don't think I asked his name. I don't think he gave it. She opened her eyes. Raphael had taken a small notebook out of his inner pocket and was writing. He wrote in Italian. She could see enough to know it wasn't English. "The book you received," he said, without looking up. "Do you remember anything unusual about it? The edition, the cover, a mark inside." "It was old. It felt old. Leather, I think. Or something that was supposed to look like leather. Dark green. There was a gold stamp on the front, but it was worn down. I couldn't read it. The card that came with it was just cream-colored, one line of writing. Thought you would enjoy this. No signature. I remember thinking the handwriting was kind of pretty. Do you remember what page the card was on?" I didn't open the book. I opened the card. I set the book on my desk. I never touched it again." Raphael went still. "The card was inside the book?" "No, the card came. It came in an envelope attached to the front, with a little ribbon. Not a page number. Not a page number." She frowned. "Why?" "Because if the card had been marking a page, that page might be the password. A quote, a line, something underlined. Ortiz was a careful man. He was not a dramatic man. He did not choose passwords out of sentiment. He chose them out of architecture. The card was part of the architecture." "But the card wasn't in the book." "No, but something was. Something he believed you would find when you opened it, if you ever did. Something he could build a password around." "I never opened it. He was counting on two things: that you would, and that if you did not, he would be alive to help you." "He was wrong about both." "Yes." She sat back. She felt a little bit sick. She thought about Daniel Ortiz, the man who had looked uncomfortable in a rented tuxedo at a gala, who read a novel about patience on the train home to his 3 children, who had picked out of one conversation the one person he thought might be gentle with the most dangerous thing he owned. She thought about how wrong he had been about a lot of things and how right he had been about her eyes. "We'll find it," she said. Raphael looked up from the notebook. "We?" "That's what I said. Alara, you took me out of a cathedral yesterday. You said it was to save my life. Fine, I'm here. I'm alive. And now you're telling me the thing that got me into that cathedral in the first place was sitting on my writing desk for 2 months, and I had no idea. You're telling me a man I talked to for 4 minutes died because of what he gave me, and I didn't even open it. You are not going to ask me to go sit upstairs and wait for you to solve this. I won't." He regarded her. She met his eyes and didn't look away. For a long moment he didn't say anything. Then, very quietly, "All right, all right, all right," he said. "We." That was the first morning. The days that followed fell into a rhythm she would not have predicted. The mansion was large enough that she did not have to see him unless she wanted to. She didn't want to, at first. She stayed mostly in the east wing, her suite, the library at the end of the second-floor corridor, a small sunroom that faced the water, and Serafina brought her meals on a tray if she didn't come down. Serafina, with the master key that now knocked. Serafina, who looked at her with the same calm opacity she looked at everyone, and who never once asked a question and never once volunteered an answer. The house felt like a held breath. Alara noticed things the way a prisoner notices things. The guards on the grounds worked in shifts. She counted them in the mornings from her window. 8 men, sometimes 9, walking the tree line with the patient watchfulness of people being paid very well to stay awake. The gate at the end of the drive was always closed. Black cars came and went. Men she didn't recognize walked into the West Wing and walked out an hour later, faces set. Nobody spoke to her. Nobody touched her. Nobody told her where she could and could not go within the house. She tested that. On the second day, she walked down the main staircase and through the front hall and out onto the front steps. Nobody stopped her. She got as far as the fountain before a man in a gray overcoat came out of nowhere, polite as a maitre d'. "Miss Vance, I'm just getting some air." "Of course, I'll walk with you." "I don't want you to walk with me." "I understand, ma'am." He did not move. "I'll walk with you." She looked at him. He looked back at her, patient and blank and unbudging, the exact same expression she had seen on Dominic's face the night he'd taken her duffel bag out of the driveway. It was, she thought, the universal face of a man who had been given an instruction and was prepared to outlast her. She walked around the fountain twice. He walked 2 steps behind. She got cold. She went back inside. That was the first test. There were others. None of them ended differently. On the third day, she met him in the library by accident. She had come down in the late afternoon to find a book. Not for any reason, just because she'd been staring at the walls of her suite for 2 hours and was going to lose her mind. And he was already there, sitting in one of the leather chairs by the fireplace, a laptop on his knee, his jacket off, his shirt sleeves rolled. When she walked in, he looked up and did not stand. That surprised her. Every other time she'd entered a room, he had stood. It was, well, she realized, a gesture he had been making on purpose, a small, deliberate thing. And now, today, he had decided to stop. "Sorry," she said. "For what?" "I didn't know anybody was in here." "Come in." "I was just looking for something to read." "Come in, Alara." She came in. She went to the shelves. She ran her finger along the spines without really reading them. She felt him behind her, not watching exactly, but aware. "How's the encryption?" she asked the bookshelf. "Slow." "How slow?" 3 more days, perhaps. Maybe 4. The people working on it are the best there are, which is another way of saying they are expensive and easily bored. I am keeping them interested. With money. With money and with the promise of what is on the drive. Money is how you start. What is on the drive is how you finish. She pulled down a book. She didn't look at which one. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Yes." "Why you?" "Pardon?" She turned around. The book was still in her hands. She had her back against the shelves. "Why you?" she said. "Somebody was going to come for that drive. Marchetti was going to come. The feds were coming. You said Ortiz had a task force. Somebody in your position. You could have just told them, tipped them off, let them handle it. The feds raid my father's house. They find the book. They open it. They get the drive. They go. My wedding still happens. Victor gets arrested a week later. I don't know, widowed, something. I'm not in this house. You don't have to deal with me. So why you?" He closed the laptop. He set it on the side table. He didn't stand. "That is a good question," he said. "Answer it." 2 reasons. She waited. "The first is practical. The task force has been compromised for some time. I don't know by whom, neither do they. Or if they do, they are not telling me. If I had handed them this information 6 weeks ago, before I knew about you, the drive would have ended up in Marchetti's hands within 48 hours. You along with it. That is not speculation. That is pattern." "Okay, that's one. What's the second?" He looked at her. It was a long look. Not the look a man gives a woman in a sweater too big for her in a library on a winter afternoon. It was the look of a man deciding, in real time, how honest he was going to be. "The second is not practical," he said. "Fine, what is it?" "I saw a photograph of you," he said, "in May, in a file that was passed to me by someone who works for me and who works for others as well, but that is not important right now. The photograph had been taken at a restaurant. You were sitting across from Victor. You were smiling. You were wearing something green. You looked—" He paused. He was choosing his words with more care than she'd seen him choose anything. "You looked like someone who had already decided to die." She didn't move. "I had been following Marchetti for some time," he said, "for reasons of my own, which I will tell you when you ask. I had files on many of the people in his circle. Your file was very thin, a page, your name, your father's debts, a note that read engaged with a date. I looked at that photograph for a long time, Ilara, and I thought, no, not this one. Not that face. I do not know her and I do not owe her anything, but not this one." "That's not an answer." "It is the only honest one I have." She stared at him. She didn't know what to do with what he'd just said. She was 26 years old. She had been told she was beautiful by men who wanted to use her, and cruel by a fiancé who wanted to own her, and a good girl by a father who wanted her to not make a fuss. She had never, in her life, been told by anyone that a single photograph had changed the course of their decisions. And the worst part, the part that made her want to put the book back on the shelf and walk out of the room, was that she could tell he wasn't saying it to flatter her. He was saying it because she had asked. He was telling her the truth because she had demanded it, and he was a man who, when pushed, told the truth more often than he didn't. That was the dangerous thing. That was the thing she was going to have to be careful about. "I should go," she said. "All right." She went to the door. At the door, she stopped. Raphael. He looked up. Don't lie to me again. Not about anything. I haven't yet. Start now and mean it. A pause. All right. She left. She did not read the book that night. She sat by the window with it open on her knees on a page she did not turn and watched the light at the end of the dock come on at 6:30 and burn until morning. On the 5th day, she saw him hurt a man. It was an accident. She hadn't meant to see. She'd gone looking for a glass of water around 1 in the morning. The house was quieter at night than it was in the day. The guards stationed outside, the hallways dim. And she'd come down the back stairs and through the butler's pantry and into the kitchen, which was empty, which was good because she didn't want Serafina. The kitchen had 2 doors, one to the dining room, one to a short hallway that led, she had gathered, to the back of the west wing. That door was propped open a few inches. Light was coming through it. Voices. She should have turned around. She didn't turn around. She took a step closer, then another. Then she was at the gap in the door with her glass of water, her bare feet cold on the tile, and she could hear them plainly now. 3 men, Italian and English, Raphael's voice among them. Tell me again. I already told you. Tell me again, Marco. I'm a patient man. A long pause. I was supposed to check the South Road at 2100. I was on it. I did the sweep. You did not do the sweep. I did. You did not do the sweep, Marco. I know this because I had Vincenzo check the cameras on the South Road. And there is you, in your car, at 2100, not on the South Road. You were parked at the gas station on Route 9 for 22 minutes. Who were you talking to? A longer pause. Marco. Last chance. I'm going to ask one more time. Who were you talking to? My wife. Your wife. She was upset. Our son, he is sick. Your son is not sick. Your son is not sick, Marco. I called your wife an hour ago. She is at her sister's. Your son is fine. I asked her if she had spoken with you on the phone tonight. She said she had not spoken to you in 2 days. Who were you talking to? Silence. Elara stood in the dark pantry with a glass of water in her hand and did not breathe. The man Marco's voice was breaking now. They have pictures of my daughter from her school. They said if I did not, they said it was only this one time, Raphael. Please, please. It was only, there was a sound. She did not know what it was at first, a short, muted crack, a sharp intake of breath from more than one throat. Then a sob, long and broken, from somewhere low. He had gone to the floor, she realized. Marco had gone to the floor. Marco, please, Marco, look at me. Please, Raphael, please, my daughter, look at me, Marco. A terrible, hiccuping silence. Your daughter will be safe. I give you my word. My people will be with her tonight before you finish telling me what I'm about to ask you. She will not be hurt. Do you understand me? Yes. Good. Now, the pictures. Who gave them to you? Say the name. A long, shuddering pause. Benedetti, the man whispered. It was Benedetti from Marchetti's people. He said the pictures. He said, thank you, Marco. Raphael, you betrayed me. Raphael, you betrayed me. You understand that I cannot let that stand, even knowing why. You understand that. Tell me you understand. Another sob. I understand. Good. A long silence. You are going to do one more thing for me, Marco. One thing. Then this is over. You will sit in that chair. You will call Benedetti on the phone we are going to give you. You will tell him that the woman was moved this morning to a house in Connecticut. You will give him an address we will give you. You will sound frightened, which will be easy. You will hang up. You will go to the chair in the other room. You will stay there until morning, and then you will leave this house and this country, and your daughter will be at the airport in Rome waiting for you, with your wife. Do you understand? Silence. Marco. Yes. Yes, I understand. Thank you. Do not thank me. Do not thank me, Marco. I am not being kind. I am doing math. Get up. She heard the chair. She heard the sound of a man getting to his feet, the small animal noises of someone who had just been allowed to live. She took one step back. The floorboard in the pantry creaked. The voices stopped. She did not move. For 5 seconds, maybe 6, she was not counting. Time had gone very strange. There was only the sound of her own heartbeat and the faint hum of the refrigerator behind her. Then footsteps, measured and unhurried, and the pantry door swung wider, and Raphael stood in the gap in his shirt sleeves with the same expression he had worn all week, except that his eyes were harder than she had ever seen them. He looked at her. He looked at the glass of water in her hand. "How long have you been standing there?" he said quietly. "Long enough." "How long is long enough?" "Long enough." He closed the door to the back hallway behind him. The sound was very soft. "Come with me." "Am I in trouble?" "No, but you are not going back upstairs alone right now." "Why?" "Because in 10 minutes, Marco is going to make a phone call from this house. In 2 hours, men who believed you were in Connecticut are going to find out you were not. By morning, they are going to know that I know someone in my house spoke to them, and I do not want you out of my sight tonight. Come with me." She did not argue. He took the glass of water out of her hand. He set it on the counter. He put his hand at the small of her back. The first time he had touched her since the cathedral, and it was barely a touch, just a pressure, just a direction. And he walked her out of the kitchen and up the back stairs into a small sitting room at the end of the east wing that she had not been in before. The sitting room had a fire going, 2 armchairs, a low table, books, a blanket folded on the back of a couch. It looked absurdly like a room a person would read in. "Sit," he said. She sat. On the couch, not in a chair. She didn't know why. He did not sit. He stood at the fireplace for a moment, with his back to her, and she watched the line of his shoulders under the white shirt, and the small, steady movement of his breathing, and the way his right hand, the hand that had done whatever it had done downstairs, flexed once, and once again, and was still. "I should not have let you hear that," he said. "I wasn't supposed to be there. I know. That is not what I mean." He turned around. She had never seen him look quite like this. It was not guilt. She did not think it was shame. It was something colder than either of those. He looked like a man who had made a decision a long time ago about what kind of person he was going to be, and was now watching, in real time, a woman revise her opinion of him, and had decided not to argue with her about it. "I did not hit him," he said. "You didn't—" He fell. When he understood what I knew, his legs went. "That was the sound you heard. I did not touch him. I am not a man who beats a man in my own kitchen, Alara. I am many things, some of them very ugly, but I am not that." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you heard a sound, and you drew a picture in your head, and the picture was wrong. I am willing for you to have many correct pictures of me. I am not willing to let you have a wrong one when a correct one exists." She sat very still. "What are you going to do to him? To Marco?" "Yes, nothing. I meant what I said downstairs. In the morning, he will be on a plane. His wife and his daughter will meet him. He will never work for anyone in our world again, because I will see to it that no one will have him. He will sell insurance in a small city in Italy, and his daughter will grow up, and he will be a small, sad, shrunken man for the rest of his life, which is the worst thing I can do to him, and also the kindest. He betrayed me to protect his child. I cannot pretend I do not understand that, but I cannot have him in my house. Do you see the difference?" "I see it." "Good." "Raphael." "Yes." "The men you sent to his daughter, are they—" "They are already there. They have been there for 3 hours. Vincenzo called me about the cameras at 10. I moved his family at 10:15. They were safe before I brought him into that room. I do not bargain with children, Alara. Not with his. Not with anyone's. Understand that, if nothing else." She was watching his face. She was trying, she realized, to see him. Really see him. Not the man from the cathedral. Not the man at the breakfast table. The man in front of her, in a white shirt, at 1 in the morning, in a room with a fire, telling a woman he had known for 5 days the shape of his own cruelty and the shape of its limits. "Sit down," she said. "I'm fine." "Sit down, Raphael." He looked at her for a moment. He sat. He took the armchair across from the couch. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands loosely clasped. He did not look at her. "You said you would tell me," she said. "When I asked why you were following Marchetti." "I did. I'm asking." "All right." He looked up. "He killed my brother," he said, 11 years ago, over a disagreement about a shipping route. My brother was 23. He was a kinder man than I have ever been. Marchetti put 2 men on him outside a restaurant in Queens. They put him in the trunk of a car. They drove the car into the East River. My brother was alive when the car went in. I have never been able to prove that, but I know it. I have known it for 11 years. She did not speak. I have spent those 11 years building what I have built so that one day I could put Victor Marchetti in the ground and not be touched for it. I was 6 weeks away, Alara. That was where I was when the photograph of you crossed my desk. 6 weeks. And instead I walked into a cathedral and took a stranger out of a wedding and put 11 years of patience at risk. And I did it knowing I was doing it, and I have not been sorry yet. He held her gaze. That is the answer to why you, he said. I did it because I could. I did it because I would not have been able to live with myself if I had not. And I did it because when I looked at that photograph, I did not see a stranger. I saw someone I was not going to let the world have. You can make of that what you want. She did not know what to say. She did not say anything. After a while, she did not know how long, he stood up. He walked to the door. He stopped with his hand on the frame. Stay in this wing tonight, he said. Serafina will sleep in the room next to yours. You have the master key back. She doesn't. That is the last time anyone will have a key to your door but you. Raphael, he paused. Thank you, she said, for telling me. He did not turn around. Do not thank me yet, he said. He closed the door softly behind him. She sat on the couch in the little room with the fire for a long time after he was gone. She watched the flames until they were embers. She thought about a man named Daniel Ortiz who had read a novel about patience on the train. She thought about a man she did not know named Marco who was, at this moment, sitting in a chair downstairs making a phone call that would save his daughter. She thought about the light at the end of the dock, burning all night, every night, since she had come to this house. Somewhere below her, in the West Wing, Rafael de Luca was doing whatever a man like him did at 1 a.m. when a woman he had saved had accidentally heard the shape of who he actually was. She did not know, anymore, whether she was afraid of him. She only knew that when he had put his hand at the small of her back in the kitchen, barely a touch, just a pressure, she had let him walk her up the stairs, and she had not been afraid, and that scared her more than anything else in the house. She went back to her suite. She locked the door. She left the lamp on. She slept 4 hours and woke at dawn with the lamp still burning and the smell of smoke from the fire in the small sitting room still caught in her hair. For a while she lay there and listened to the house. It was not a quiet house. She had learned that in her first few days. Even at 6 a.m, even with no one in her hallway, the mansion held a kind of low, continuous hum. The pipes, the heat, men moving somewhere else. The faint crunch of tires on gravel as another black car came up the drive. Last night, that sound had felt like surveillance. This morning, it felt like something else. Something she did not have a word for yet. The sound of a machine protecting her, maybe. Or the sound of a machine she was now inside of. She got up. She washed her face. She stood in front of the mirror and looked at the woman there and did not look away. She was changing. She could see it. Not the obvious things. She had lost a little weight. The hollows under her eyes were still there, but something deeper in the way she held her shoulders. She was not flinching at herself anymore. She was studying herself. Like a stranger she had been assigned to keep alive. She dressed in her own clothes again. She brushed her hair back and did not bother to pin it. She went down to the breakfast room and he was not there. He had been gone most of the morning, Serafina said when asked, without looking up from the coffee. There had been a meeting. He had said to tell Miss Vance to eat, and that he would see her at 11 in the library, and that if she wished to go for a walk on the grounds, she was now permitted to do so alone. Alone, Alara repeated. Alone, Miss Vance. What changed? Serafina poured the coffee. I don't ask. She ate something. She didn't remember what. She went out the side door of the breakfast room, the one that opened onto the terrace and the long sloping lawn that ran down to the lake, and she walked. The ground was still hard with frost in the shaded patches. The air smelled of pine and cold water. Two men stood at the edge of the tree line on the far side of the lawn. They did not approach her. They watched her walk. She walked anyway. At the end of the dock there was a small wooden bench. She sat on it for a long time. She pulled the sleeves of her sweater down over her hands. She looked out at the water. She thought about the fact that for 6 months she had woken up every morning and had to decide all over again whether she was going to get out of bed. And for 5 mornings in this house she had just gotten out of bed without deciding anything. That was either healing or it was something worse. She didn't know which yet. She did not cry on the bench. She had thought she might. She didn't. She watched a single duck land on the water and consider her, and then decide she wasn't worth much and drift away. And she understood, in a way she had not been willing to understand upstairs in the mirror, that she was no longer waiting to be saved. She had been saved. That part of the story was over. Whatever this was, now, the staying or the leaving or the in-between, this was a different story. She was going to have to start deciding what she wanted in it. She went back inside at 10:40. She was in the library at 5 to 11. He was there. He had been there a while, she thought. His jacket was on the back of the chair. His sleeves were pushed up. A laptop was open on the low table and several sheets of paper were spread out around it. A second man sat across from him, dark-haired, younger than Raphael. The same gray eyes, but softer, less carved. He looked up when she came in. Raphael did not immediately. "Miss Vance," the younger man said, and stood. "I am Vincenzo. I have been hearing about you all week." "Favorably, I hope." "In every way possible." That got a small look from Raphael. Sharp, sideways, and Vincenzo smiled at it without changing his expression. "Sit down, Vincenzo," Raphael said, still reading. "I was being charming." "I noticed." Elora bit the inside of her cheek to keep her face flat. She took the chair across from Raphael. She clasped her hands in her lap. She was, very consciously, not doing anything. It was the only posture she trusted this morning. "The drive is open," Raphael said. "Open. The encryption broke at 3:12 this morning. Your word worked. Patience. Patience. Lower case. No punctuation. All of it is there, Elara. 18 years. The names are worse than we thought." "Worse how?" "2 federal judges, a deputy commissioner, a senior officer in the task force I mentioned, 4 sitting members of the state legislature, the head of licensing for the Port Authority, 2 men I recognized from my own table at a dinner last year, who smiled at me and shook my hand and sat down to eat." He did not look angry. He looked, if anything, tired in a way she had not seen him tired before. Victor Marchetti did not run a criminal organization. He ran a utility company. He ran the pipes under an entire city. When that drive gets to the right people, the city is going to have to decide how many of its own pipes it wants to dig up. You said when. Yes. Not if. No. Good. He looked up at her for the first time. Really looked. She could see the night in his face. He had not slept at all, she understood. And something underneath the tiredness, something like a very private satisfaction that he was carefully not showing. He had been working for this for 11 years. The man who had killed his brother had taken a bullet in a cathedral 5 days ago and was now in a hospital bed under armed guard. And the thing that had been keeping Marchetti's empire standing was sitting on a flash drive on a table between them. "We have another problem," Vincenzo said. "What now?" Elara said, and surprised herself a little. Though we had come out without her thinking. Neither of them commented on it. "Benedetti," Raphael said. "The man Marco was talking to. He bit on the Connecticut house, sent 4 men there last night. My people were waiting. 3 in custody, 1 dead. We have the one who talks most easily, and he talked." "About what?" "About what Marchetti's people believe," Raphael said. "They believe the drive is already in the hands of the federal task force. They believe you know the password. They believe you are the only person alive who does. And they believe, this is the part that matters, Elara. This is the part I want you to hear very carefully, that if you are dead before the drive is opened and the names are extracted, the encryption will reset and the drive will be useless." "That isn't true." "It does not matter whether it is true. It matters whether they believe it." "And they believe it." "They believe it, yes, because someone inside my own organization has been telling them so for about 3 weeks." The room went still. Inside your... Yes. Who? I do not know yet. I will by tonight. How? That, Raphael said, is why I asked you here. He closed the laptop. He leaned forward. He put his elbows on his knees the way he had last night, but this time he looked at her instead of the floor. I'm going to tell you a plan, he said. I'm going to tell you the whole plan. I am then going to ask you if you will agree to it. If you say no, the plan does not happen. I will find another way. That is not a lie. Nod if you understand. She nodded. There are 4 people in this house, he said, who know what is really on that drive and who know we are in possession of it. Myself, Vincenzo, Serafina, our technician who is asleep at the moment in the West Wing because he has not slept in 30 hours. Everyone else, every guard, every staff member, every man I have in this house has been told the drive is still encrypted, that we are expecting a break by the end of the week, that you, Elara, are the only person who can unlock it.
Okay.
Today, at noon, I will be making a phone call from the landline in the library. I will be speaking to a man who does not exist. A friend of mine is going to play the part. And I will be telling him that the technician has made a breakthrough. I will tell him the decryption will be complete by tomorrow morning. I will tell him I am planning to move you and the drive to a different location tonight, because this house is no longer secure, and that the convoy will leave at 2200, a convoy you won't actually send. A convoy I will send, with 3 decoy vehicles and 1 vehicle you are not in. Where will I be? In this house, in my study, on the first floor of the West Wing, behind a door that only 3 people in this house have a key to. With me. And whoever is feeding Marchetti's people information, will call them. We'll tell them about the convoy. We'll tell them the route. We'll tell them that you and the drive are leaving. Marchetti's people will move on that information. And when they do, we will know. From the direction the hit comes from the timing, from who moves and who does not move inside this house, who has been selling us. And the people on the convoy. The people on the convoy are my people, and they know what they are driving into. Every one of them. No one on that road tonight will be there without knowing. That is not negotiable for me, Elara. I do not put men in cars as bait without telling them what they are. Do you understand that? I understand. Good. And the people who hit the convoy, some will live, some will not. That will depend on them. And the rat. Raphael's jaw moved very slightly. The rat, he said, is going to have a very long night. Vincenzo was watching her carefully. She could feel it. She did not meet his eyes. She kept looking at Raphael. What do you need me to do? She said. I need you to be somewhere today, he said, visibly. I need every guard in this house, every man on my detail, to see you alive and healthy and in the East Wing at lunch. I need them to see you in the library with Vincenzo at 2. I need them to see you walking the South Terrace at 4. I need you to be a presence in this house, Elara, so that when 2200 comes and the convoy leaves, and the rat sees the middle car with your bodyguards and the blacked-out windows, he believes you are in it. That's it. That's it. The hard part is what you are not going to do. You are not going to tell anyone. Not Serafina. She does not know about this plan, and she is not going to know. Not the girl who cleans your rooms, not the young man who serves your lunch. Nobody. You're going to go about your day like a woman waiting to be moved. And at 9:30 tonight, you are going to come to the West Wing through the back stairs. Vincenzo will collect you, and you are going to sit with me in my study, and you are going to wait. You will hear the convoy leave. You will hear, perhaps an hour after that, what happens to it. And depending on what happens to it, we will move. Move how? Depends on what we learn. All right? Elara. What? I need to ask you once more. You do not have to do this. Are you going to do it if I say no? I'm going to find another way, yes. Is the other way slower? The other way is considerably slower, and the rat will have considerably more time to do considerably more damage in the meantime. Then there isn't another way, she said. Let's do this one. There was a very short silence. All right, Raphael said. Vincenzo stood. He buttoned his jacket. He looked at her, and for the first time she saw, plainly, the resemblance between the 2 men. It wasn't the eyes, it was the way they went still when they had decided something. "It was a pleasure, Miss Vance," he said. "Was it?" "It was informative." He left. Raphael stayed where he was, on the edge of the chair, looking at her. "What?" she said. "Nothing. You have a face on. I have been told." "What is it?" "I had a speech prepared," he said, "for the part where you said no. It was a very good speech. I am now not going to get to deliver it. I am mourning it a little. Sorry. I forgive you." She stood. She did not know why she was smiling. She was smiling. It felt rusty. It felt like a thing she had last done a long time ago. "Where am I supposed to be at noon?" she said. "Lunch? The sunroom? Read something. Be seen. And at 2. In here, with Vincenzo. He will tell you a funny story, and you will laugh at it if he is funny, and if he is not funny, you will do him the kindness of pretending." "Is he ever funny?" "Sometimes." She was almost to the door. She stopped. She turned around. "Raphael." "Yes. If this goes wrong tonight, it isn't going to." "If it does?" "Elara, listen. If it does. If the rat is smarter than you think. If somehow you are the one in the wrong place at the wrong time. I need you to know." She didn't know how to say it. She had not meant to start saying it. He waited. She opened her mouth and closed it and opened it again, and finally she said, "I don't know what I'm trying to say. Just don't die." He was very still for a moment. "All right," he said. "All right? All right, Elara. I will try very hard not to." She went. She did not look back to see what his face did when the door closed, because she did not trust herself to see it. She spent the day being visible. She ate lunch in the sunroom with a book open and did not read a word of it. She walked from the East Wing to the library at 2 and sat with Vincenzo for 45 minutes, and he was funny, as it turned out, in a small, dry way. And she laughed at a story about the time he had been shot in the calf by a man who had immediately apologized and then bought him dinner. She walked the South Terrace at 4 with a long wool coat borrowed from Serafina. The light was already fading. The guards at the tree line saluted her, with a small movement that passes for a salute among men who are not supposed to acknowledge you. She nodded back. She kept her hands in her pockets. She tried to remember what her face was doing. At 5, she went back upstairs. She sat in her suite and did nothing. She had not understood how hard it would be to do nothing. Every few minutes, she found herself standing up, walking to the window, sitting back down. She tried to read. She read the same paragraph 6 times. She tried to nap. She lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling and thought about the men who were going to be in the convoy that evening, and the men who were going to be waiting for the convoy along the road, and the man, whoever he was, somewhere in this house right now, picking up a phone, making a call to Benedetti, handing over the route and the timing. She thought about Raphael in his study in the West Wing, preparing. She thought about her father, who would be back in her father's house now, alone, with his tuxedo in the closet and the engagement announcement still pinned to the corkboard by his phone. She thought about Victor, who was, Vincenzo had mentioned, in an upstate hospital with a bullet in his lung, and a chaplain hovering and a federal marshal outside the door. She did not feel anything when she thought about him. Not pity, not satisfaction, just a flat nothing, as if someone had reached into her and taken the feeling out and put it in a box somewhere. At 9:25, there was a knock at her door. "Miss Vance?" "Vincenzo." She opened the door. He had changed into something dark and practical. Still a jacket, but looser, and he was wearing boots now instead of the polished Oxfords he had worn that morning. "Ready?" "Yes." "Come." They did not use the main staircase. He took her the back way. Down the servants' stairs, through the butler's pantry where she had stood 5 nights ago with a glass of water, through the kitchen where Serafina was, improbably, baking something. The smell hit Elara like a hand. Butter and sugar and vanilla. It was so ordinary, it was almost offensive. Serafina looked up. She met Elara's eyes. She nodded, once, with the same opaque calm she always wore, and Elara realized in that nod that Serafina knew. Raphael had said Serafina did not know about the plan. That was probably true in the literal sense, but Serafina knew something, that tonight was not an ordinary night, that the young woman was being moved through the kitchen instead of the front hall for a reason. That the baking had been started not because anyone was going to eat it, but because Serafina needed her hands to do something. Elara gave her the smallest possible smile back. Vincenzo led her down a short corridor and into a part of the house she had not been in before, the west wing. It was darker than the east wing, and older somehow, the woodwork heavier. They passed two guards. Both of them stood aside. Neither said anything. At the end of the corridor was a door. Vincenzo knocked twice, paused, and knocked once more. She noticed the pattern. She filed it away without meaning to. The door opened. Raphael was in a dark sweater and dark pants. No jacket. No weapon visible, though she was not stupid enough to believe there wasn't one within reach. The study behind him was low lit. A single lamp, a fire, heavy curtains drawn over the tall windows. A desk, a pair of chairs, books, a short leather couch along one wall. "Thank you, Vincenzo. I'll be on the terrace." "Go." The door closed. It was just the two of them. "Sit," he said. "Wherever. The couch is more comfortable. The chairs have better light." She sat on the couch. He took one of the chairs. She noticed he had set it so that he was angled toward the door, not toward her. A small thing. She was noticing small things about him constantly now. It was a habit she was going to have to break, or at least hide. "What time is the convoy leaving?" she said. 10, exactly. 7 minutes. "How long will it take?" "The hit will come between the second and third checkpoint, about 30 minutes in, give or take 5. And then we wait. 10 minutes, maybe 15, for my people to confirm. Whoever has been reporting to Benedetti will try to confirm from this end. They will need to hear from a second source that the hit succeeded. That is when they will expose themselves. Somewhere in this house, or on the grounds, a man is going to step away from his post to make a call he should not be making. We have cameras on everyone. We are going to see him. We are going to know. And then? And then I handle it. Quickly. Yes. You mean you are going to kill him? I mean I'm going to handle it, Elara. Don't. I am not going to lie to you about it. I know. I'm not asking you to lie. I'm asking you not to kill him. Not tonight. Not in this house. He looked at her. Why? He said. Because. That is not a reason. Because I don't. She stopped. She started over. Because I don't want to wake up tomorrow and know that there was a man in this house when I went to sleep and not when I woke up. I want to know that when this thing is over, if I walk out of this house, I walked out of a place where that did not happen. I don't want to spend the rest of my life knowing what you did for me in a room I wasn't in. That's the reason. That's the best I can do for you. Don't kill him here. Raphael did not answer right away. He looked at the fire for a long time. If I send him to the federal task force, he said finally, he is dead by the end of the week. Benedetti has people in the task force. You know this. I told you this. Handing him over is a slower execution. Then don't hand him over to them. Then who? Hand him over to a federal agent who is not in the task force. You know one. You have to. Somebody clean. Get the drive to that person. Get the rat to that person. Don't do it yourself. You are asking me not to settle my own account. I'm asking you not to settle it in this house tonight. In front of me. Yes. He turned his head and looked at her. The firelight was doing something to the line of his jaw. She tried not to notice. She did not succeed. That is more difficult than you realize, he said. I realize. No, you don't. Don't realize. This is a man who has eaten at my table, who has sat in this study, who knows where my mother is buried, who knows where my brother is buried, who knew you were here before most of the men in my own house knew you were here. And he sold us, sold you, for the kind of money that would embarrass a child. I have spent my life being the kind of man who, when something like this happened, handled it, not out of cruelty, out of mathematics. Out of that is how this world stays standing. I know. You don't know. I know enough, she said, and I'm still asking. There was a long silence. He nodded, once. All right. All right. I will not do it in this house tonight, he said. I will not do it with my own hands at all. I will hand him to a woman I know at the Southern District. Her name is Cheryl Alvaro. She is not in Benedetti's pocket. She does not fear anyone in Marchetti's organization. She will take him, and she will put him in a hole so deep Benedetti will not find him for a year. Is that acceptable to you? Yes. Good. Thank you. Do not thank me, Alara. I'm going to thank you anyway. I noticed. She almost smiled again. She didn't. The clock on the mantel clicked over to 10, and somewhere at the far end of the house, very faintly, she heard engines. 3 sets. Maybe 4. Big ones. They started at roughly the same time, the way a well-drilled set of cars will, and they did not rev, they did not linger. Tires on gravel, a low pulse of sound moving away from the house down the long drive, then out the gate, then fading into the pine trees. The convoy was gone. Raphael had closed his eyes briefly when the engine started. When he opened them, his face was the same as before, but something in the set of his shoulders had shifted, just a fraction. Now we wait, he said. How long? 30 minutes to the hit point, 10 for confirmation. If something goes wrong before that, we will hear it faster. If something goes right before that, then we have a name an hour from now. She curled her feet up under her on the couch. He watched her do it without commenting. The fire settled. Outside the drawn curtains, the wind had picked up. She could hear it in the pines around the house. A branch brushed against a window somewhere. Tell me about Vincenzo, she said. Why? Because I have nothing to do for 40 minutes, and I do not want to sit here and count them. A small breath of something that might have been a laugh in a lighter man. He is my cousin. We grew up together. His mother and my mother were sisters. He is 2 years younger than I am. He was a very serious child. He read constantly. He wanted to be a priest. A priest? For about 6 months, when he was 14. Then he met a girl at a summer festival and revised his plans. How did he end up here? He tried to leave. He went to Milan. He went to London. He worked in a bank for 2 years. He hated it. He came back. He said he could not be anywhere that he did not understand the rules, and that the rules in a bank did not make sense to him, and that the rules here made a terrible kind of sense. He is a better man than I am. He would tell you that is not true. He is wrong. And your brother? The pause was very small, but it was there. Matteo. Matteo. He was the one our mother loved best, he said. She would not have said so. She would have denied it. But he was. He was funnier than I was. He was kinder. He was the kind of person who would give money to a man on the street and then sit down on the curb and talk to him for an hour. He was going to go to law school. He had been accepted at Columbia. He had a girlfriend named Grace. She worked at a bakery in Astoria. He was going to propose to her in May. He died in April. She came to the funeral in a black dress, with flowers still on the cuffs because she had forgotten to change. I paid her rent for 6 years and she never knew it was me. She thought it was his old boss. She's married now, 2 kids. They live in New Jersey. I see her in the background of photographs sometimes. Raphael. Yes. I'm sorry. Do not be sorry. It is an old grief. It is weathered. It doesn't sound weathered. No, he said after a moment. I suppose it doesn't. She did not know what to do with her hands. She put them around a cushion. She held on to it. The clock ticked. 10:11. 10:17. At 10:22, the phone on his desk buzzed, twice, and went silent. He did not move for a moment. Then he stood, the motion neat and unhurried, and he went to the desk, and he picked up the phone, and he read what was on it. And she watched his face, and she saw in his face, in the brief second before he put the mask back on, a kind of relief that was almost violent. The hit came, he said, and your people, all alive. 2 injured, 1 serious. He will live. The other side, 4 in custody, 2 dead, 1 wounded and running. They are tracking him. We got Benedetti's cousin in the hit team. We got a truck with enough hardware in it to furnish an embassy. And we got a very thin smile, the first one of the night. A phone number in the pocket of one of the dead men that dials directly to a cell phone that is, at this moment, in the west wing of this house. You're sure? We are sure. We have had the number on a tap for 90 seconds. The man carrying that phone is currently in the corridor outside the wine cellar. He is pretending to fix a light fixture. He is about to receive a call from Vincenzo, who is going to be playing the part of a man who wants to know why there has been no radio contact with the convoy. And when the rat answers, he confirms himself. It is already done. The call is being made now. We are watching him on camera. She stood up without meaning to. She walked to the desk. She did not ask if she could. He did not stop her. On the monitor set into the side of the desk, she had not noticed it before. It had been dark. She saw a hallway in gray and white, and a man standing on a short ladder and a phone in his hand. He was talking. He was looking over his shoulder while he talked, checking the corridor. He was a man she had seen. She knew his face. He had been one of the men who had stood at the doorway the night she arrived. He had taken her father's name when her father's name had come up one time at dinner. He had refilled her water glass 3 nights ago. His name, she thought, was Piero. Piero, she said. Yes. He was nice to me. He was very good at his job, except for this. On the monitor, the man on the ladder finished his call. He hung up. He stepped down off the ladder. He put the phone in his inner jacket pocket. He looked at the camera. Not directly. He did not know the camera was there. And he straightened his tie, and he walked down the corridor. He walked, Alara realized, into 3 men who were coming around the far corner. He froze. He went for the phone. He went for his weapon. He got one hand on the grip. Vincenzo was the one who took him down. It was neat. It was unshowy. 2 men held the arms. Vincenzo took the weapon. Vincenzo took the phone. Vincenzo said something quiet and brief into the man's ear. Piero's face, on the monitor, did something terrible. He did not beg. He did not shout. He simply went very still, and his mouth moved, and she thought he was saying a name. A woman's name, maybe. Not a curse, just a name. Raphael turned off the monitor. It's done, he said. Where are they taking him? To a room with no windows. And then I make a phone call to a woman named Cheryl Alvaro at home, because she is in bed. It is late, and I tell her I have a gift for her. And tomorrow morning, before the sun comes up, there is a car at the end of the drive, and Piero is in it, and the drive is in it. The real drive, not the copy. And my hands are out of it, and the rest of it is not my story anymore. And Marchetti. Cheryl Alvaro is going to walk into the hospital where Victor Marchetti is at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning with the contents of that drive and 3 federal warrants and a very large coffee. By lunchtime, she will have a list of the people who need to be arrested before sundown. By dinner, the men who have been running this city for 20 years will be under the same roof, in handcuffs, giving their glasses to other men to hold. It will be on every news station in the country by the end of the week. No one will know, publicly, who broke it open. That is fine by me. I prefer it. Said. And my father, he paused. Your father, he said, did not appear on the drive. She let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. But there are things. Things about your father, things he did to get himself into the position where a man like Marchetti could buy his daughter. He is not an innocent man, Alara. I know. He has been a foolish man. I know. He has not been a violent man. No. That is the only reason I have not yet spoken to him. She looked up at him. He was looking down at the monitor as if it were still on. You mean you're going to? I mean, he said, that when the dust settles, when Marchetti is in a cell, and Benedetti is in a cell, and Piero is in whatever corner of a federal holding facility Cheryl Alvaro finds fit for him, I am going to pay a visit to your father, in your father's living room, in a chair I believe I have sat in once before, at a dinner I attended under another name. You've been in my father's house? I have been in a great many houses, Elara. Doing what? At your father's house? Listening. He likes to talk at dinner. He likes to hear himself. I listened. What are you going to say to him? I am going to tell him, Raphael said, that you are not a thing that he owned, and that you were not a thing that he could sell, and that the next time a man comes to that house to buy his daughter, he is going to remember the face of the man who is sitting across from him tonight, and he is going to show that man to the door. And then I am going to leave. And he will never see me again. And he will not know that I paid his debts last week. She stared at him. You paid my father's debts. I paid them on Tuesday. All of them. All of them. Why? Because if I did not, Marchetti's creditors, the ones I have not yet handed to Cheryl Alvaro, would have come for him before the news broke, and they would have done things I did not want done. Because whatever he is your father. Because I could. And because he stopped. Because when I think of the house you grew up in, I do not want to think of a man losing it because of me, or of you, or of us. I do not want you to carry that. That was my own accounting. It had nothing to do with him. She did not know what to say. She did not know what to do with her face. She sat back down on the couch. She put her hands over her eyes. Raphael. Yes. I have no idea what I'm supposed to feel right now. I know. I was supposed to get married. I was supposed to be in a house in East Hampton by now. I was supposed to be someone's wife. And instead you came into a cathedral with a gun, and you brought me to a lake, and you paid my father's debts, and you told me you saw a photograph of me in May and decided I was not going to die. And tonight you let me talk you out of killing a man in your own house. And I don't know what I don't... Elara. She lifted her head. He was closer than he had been. She had not heard him move. He was not touching her. He was crouched in front of the couch, one elbow on his knee, his face level with hers. He looked at her with the full attention he gave things. There was nothing else in the room for him when he was looking at a person that way. She had noticed that too. You do not have to know what you feel tonight, he said quietly. Tonight is not the night to know. Tonight is not a normal night. Nothing that is true in this room tonight has to be true tomorrow morning. That is a rule I am making for you. Are you hearing me? Yes. Tomorrow morning you are going to wake up and you are going to feel something. Maybe 100 things. You will not know which of them is real. That is all right. Nothing is required of you. No door is going to close because of what you feel tomorrow. Nothing is going to be taken from you because of what you feel tomorrow. I am telling you this because you have spent a year, perhaps longer, in rooms where what you felt was used as a weapon against you. This is not that room. Do you understand me? Yes. Say it back to me. This is not that room. Good. He stood. He went to the fire. He added a log. He did not look at her while he did it, to give her a moment, and she was grateful for it in a way she could not have named. At 2 a.m, he walked her to the east wing himself. He did not take her arm. He did not put his hand at her back. He just walked beside her, through the quiet hallways, past the guards who did not look at her, up the back stairs. At her door he stopped. Good night, Elara. Good night. He turned to go. Raphael. He turned back. She did not know what she was going to say until she heard herself say it. You were wrong about something. About what? The photograph, she said. The one in May. You said I looked like someone who had already decided to die. You did. I hadn't decided. I hadn't decided. I just didn't know yet that somebody would show up and give me a different decision to make. That's not the same thing. He looked at her for a long second. No, he said softly. It isn't. He went. She closed her door. She did not lock it right away. She stood there for a minute, with her hand on the brass knob, listening to his footsteps going back down the hallway. She thought about the convoy, somewhere on a road between here and the city, with injured men in it and the dead men on the other side of it. She thought about Piero in a room with no windows. She thought about a woman named Cheryl Alvaro, asleep in a house somewhere, who was about to be woken by a phone call that would change the rest of her career. She thought about her father in his study, alone, not knowing yet that his debts were gone, not knowing yet that his daughter would not be coming home. She thought about the man walking back down the hallway. She locked the door. She leaned her back against it. She did not cry. She had thought she might. She didn't. She stood there with her back against the door of a room in a house she did not own, in the middle of a country she had never really seen, and for the first time since she was 19 years old, she was not afraid of what the next morning was going to ask her to become. The news broke the way big news always breaks in that city. Slowly, and then all at once. By 6:30 the next morning, Cheryl Alvaro was at Victor Marchetti's hospital bedside with a federal warrant and a coffee. By noon, there were unmarked sedans outside 3 judges' chambers, a senator's brownstone, and the apartment of a deputy commissioner who had, according to a surveillance photograph taken 20 minutes earlier, just stepped out to walk his wife's small white dog. By 3 in the afternoon, the first name had leaked. By 5, every cable station in the country was running the same tight rotation of footage. Courthouse steps, men in overcoats being walked with their hands behind them, Anchors in studios saying the word sprawling with the slightly stunned delight of people who had not had a story this big to chew on in a long time. In the lake house, the television stayed off. Alara found that out on the second morning. She had gone down to breakfast and asked Serafina, just out of habit, whether there was a paper. Serafina had paused in pouring the coffee and looked at her over the pot with something that was almost a smile. "There has not been a newspaper in this house in 11 years, Miss Vance." "Not one. Mr. DeLuca does not keep them." "Television?" "There is a television. It is in the room where he watches football games in the fall. At the moment, it is unplugged." "On purpose." "On purpose." Alara absorbed that. It felt like an answer to a question she had not thought to ask. He had spent 11 years building toward a morning like yesterday, and the morning had come, and he had unplugged the television. He was not watching Marchetti's empire fall on CNN. He was not clipping articles. He was, as far as she could tell from her wing of the house, working. Phone calls, meetings, men going in and out of the West Wing at odd hours. But he was not celebrating. She thought about that a lot over the next few days. She also thought, with a slow and growing discomfort, about the fact that she was free to leave. He had told her at dinner the night the news broke. They had eaten in the small dining room off the kitchen, not the formal one. The two of them, a soup Serafina had made, bread, a bottle of something dark that Alara had only sipped at, and he had said halfway through the soup, without any particular weight on it, "The men at the gate have been told that starting tomorrow, if you go out, you are not to be followed." She had set her spoon down. Meaning you can leave the grounds. Meaning you can leave the house. A car is available to you. A driver is available to you. The gate will open whenever you approach it. If you wish to go to the airport, that can be arranged. If you wish to go back to your father's house, that can be arranged. If you wish to go somewhere no one knows, a hotel, a city, anywhere, that can be arranged, with money, with documents if you need them, with my help or without it. Just like that. Just like that. What changed? What changed is that yesterday the people who wanted you dead stopped existing as an organized threat. What changed is that your name is not yet public, and if you wish it to remain not public, we have the means to keep it that way. What changed is that the reason I took you out of that cathedral no longer applies. Meaning I was a means to an end. She did not mean to say it that way. It came out harder than she'd intended. His face did not change, but something behind it did. He picked up his wine. He put it down again without drinking. "You were never a means to an end," he said quietly. "You were also a means to an end. Those two things are both true. I'm not going to lie to you about it tonight of all nights, Alara. No, don't. I am telling you that you are free because you are free, not because I want you to leave. I am telling you because it would be dishonest of me to let another day pass in this house with you not knowing it. That is all." She looked down at her soup. The surface of it had gone still. Her appetite was gone. "Okay," she said. "Okay? Okay. I heard you. Are you going to leave? I don't know. All right. I'm not saying no. I'm saying I don't know. You do not have to decide tonight. You do not have to decide this week. The offer will keep. I just wanted you to know it was there. Okay?" She did not leave. Not that night. Not the next day. Not the day after. She did not tell herself she was staying. She simply did not leave, in the way a person does not do something they have not yet found the energy to do. She told herself, when she thought about it, that she was tired, that she had nowhere to go particularly, that the idea of her father's house, of walking through the front door and looking at the card table where the wedding gifts had been stacked and the doorway where her mother's photograph still hung, felt worse to her at the moment than staying in a stranger's mansion at the edge of a frozen lake. She told herself all of that. It was all true. It was not the whole truth. The whole truth was that something had happened in that small study with the fire on the night the convoy left, and she had not yet decided what to do with it. The house felt different after that night. The armed men at the edges of the lawn thinned out. She noticed it on the third morning. She counted them from her window, out of habit, the way she had been counting them for a week, and there were 4 where there had been 8. By the 5th morning, there were 2, and they were standing in a way that was not so much patrol as polite presence. By the end of the week, they were gone entirely. She asked Serafina about it over coffee. He sent them home. To where? Some of them live in the city. Some of them have families in New Jersey. Two of them are boys from Sicily who are, at the moment, being flown home for a wedding. That was how Mr. DeLuca put it. Go to the wedding. Do not come back for a while. I am going to be quiet for a while. Quiet. That is the word he used. Is that a thing he does? Not often. No. The house was quieter. It felt, at moments, almost like a real house. She started taking breakfast with him in the small dining room instead of alone in her suite. She started walking down to the water in the mornings by herself, with no one watching her from the tree line, and sitting on the bench at the end of the dock for an hour with her coffee and her thoughts. On the fourth morning of doing that, she looked up and he was sitting on the bench next to her. He had come down so quietly she had not heard him. May I? You already are. A small breath that might have been a laugh. He sat with a careful distance between them, enough that she could feel it, enough that she knew he had measured it. I'm sorry if You didn't startle me. I wasn't going to say startled. I was going to say intrude. You didn't intrude either. All right. They did not speak for a long time. It was not uncomfortable. That was the strange thing. She watched a small boat somewhere far out across the water move slowly from left to right, a black dot against silver. She watched the shape of him in her peripheral vision, his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped, his breath fogging faintly in the cold. My father called yesterday, she said. I know. He called you first? He called the house. Serafina put it through to me. I told him you were here. I told him you were well. I told him I would ask you whether you wished to speak with him, and that I would not pressure you either way. He understood. He did not argue. He wouldn't argue with you. Probably not. What did he sound like? Older, Raphael said after a moment. I hadn't heard his voice in a while. He was sober. He asked whether you were angry. I said I did not know. He said he understood. He said he had not yet opened the letter from the creditors, that when he did, he would see the balance and he would not understand it, and he did not want to ask me what I had done because he was afraid of the answer. You told him. I told him. He cried, briefly. He asked me why. I said because you deserve to have one less thing to hate him for. He was quiet after that. Then he asked if he could come see you. And you said, I said that was not my decision. I said I would ask. I have not asked until now. She looked at the lake. A small wind had come up. She watched it push the surface into little silver scales. I don't want to see him yet. All right, I want to see him eventually. Maybe next month, maybe the month after. I don't know. Right now I can't sit across from him. I would say things I'd regret. I will tell him. How will you say it? I will say, your daughter is not ready to see you. She does not know when she will be. She is well. She is safe. When she is ready, she will reach out herself. Thank you. He did not say, don't thank me. He just nodded once and looked at the water. They sat for a while longer. Can I ask you something? She said. Yes. Do you feel different now that it's done with Marchetti? He did not answer right away. I thought I would, he said. For a long time I thought that when it was over, when he was in a cell, when the machinery was dismantled, I would feel something specific, a weight coming off, or maybe the opposite. I had read enough to know that people who build their lives around a single thing tend to fall apart when the thing is finished. I expected one or the other. And neither. I woke up the morning after, and I made coffee, and I looked at the lake, and I felt nothing in particular. My brother was still dead. I still knew where he was buried. I still had not called my mother in 3 months. The man who killed him was going to spend the rest of his life in a cage, and I thought I would be glad of that, and I am glad of it, but it is not. The word is not relief. It is more like a room that was loud has gone quiet, which is not always what a person wants. Sometimes the quiet is harder. Yeah. Yes? I know what you mean, a different version of it, but I know. He looked at her sideways. He didn't say anything. After a while he stood. He brushed his hands off on his knees. He waited until she looked up. Come find me in the library later if you want to, he said. No reason, just if you want. Okay. There's a book I want to give you. A book. A book. Not that book. She almost smiled. All right. He walked back up the lawn. She watched him go. Hands in his pockets, long coat, the small hitch in his gait that she had noticed a couple of days ago without knowing when it had started. An old injury, maybe. Nothing he'd volunteered. She turned back to the lake and sat there for another hour before she went inside. The book he gave her was not what she had expected. She realized later, expected him to hand her something heavy, a biography, a history, the kind of thing a man like him might consider a serious gift. Instead, it was a slim paperback, the cover creased, the spine softened from reading. A book of poems. American. She had never heard of the poet. The title was above the waterline. I don't read poetry, she said. That is why I am giving it to you. That is the worst sales pitch I have ever heard. I am not a salesman. She almost laughed. She took the book. She opened the cover. On the inside, in neat small handwriting that was obviously not his, was an inscription. For Raphael, from your mother, the summer you turned 19. Read this slowly. Anna. She closed the book quickly. I can't take this. You can. This is from your mother. I have had it for 20 years. I have not opened it in perhaps 8. I gave it away for a reason, Alara. Take it. What reason? Because you are the only person I have met in a very long time whom my mother would have liked. I am giving you a thing of hers because I think she would have wanted me to. You do not need to keep it. You can burn it if you want. It will not matter. What matters is that I gave it to you. She did not know what her face was doing. She sat down in the leather chair by the fire, and she put the book on her lap, and she did not open it again. He was on the other side of the room, at the desk, with a pen in his hand and some papers in front of him. He did not look over at her. He was, she understood, giving her the privacy of not being watched. After a while, she said, Raphael. Yes. If I leave, what happens? He did not stop writing, but the pen paused. Meaning, do I still hear from you? Do I never hear from you? Do you check on me? Do you not? What is the shape of it? He put the pen down. He turned his chair slightly. He did not come over to her. He did not close the distance. He just turned. That is your decision, he said, not mine. Meaning, if you leave and you do not want to hear from me, you will not. I will not contact you. I will not write. I will not call. If 10 years from now we are both still alive and you do not want to have heard my name in all that time, you will not have heard my name in all that time. That is a thing I can guarantee, and I do guarantee it. If you leave and you do want to hear from me, that is a different conversation, and we can have it, and I will do whatever in it you want. What do you want? Alara. I'm asking. He looked at her. He took a long time to answer. She watched him think. She had never watched a man take this long to say a single true thing to her. I want, he said finally, to not be the reason you stayed in a place you did not want to be in. That is the thing I want most. Anything else is secondary to that. That's not an answer. I know. Give me the real one. The real one is not appropriate tonight, Alara. Why not? Because you are in a house that I own, and you are in clothes that I have had bought for you, and you have spent the last 3 weeks in a situation that began with me putting a hand out to you in a cathedral and asking you to take it. Whatever I want, whatever I might want, is not a clean thing to hand to you. It is a thing with strings on it, whether I mean it to have strings or not. It is a thing you will not be able to look at honestly until you have been out of this house, without me, for long enough to know what you want. That is what I mean when I say it is not appropriate tonight. I am not refusing to answer. I am refusing to answer now. She sat very still. I hate, she said, how reasonable that is. I'm sorry. No, you're not. No, he said. I'm not. She almost laughed. She didn't. She looked down at the book on her lap, the old paperback, the inscription she had not looked at twice. I'm not leaving this week, she said. All right. I'm not saying I'm staying. I'm saying I'm not leaving this week. That's all I've got. That's enough. Is it? It's more than enough. She put the book on the side table. She got up. She walked to the door. At the door, she turned around. Tomorrow morning. Yes? I want to see the grounds, all of them, the parts I haven't seen, the parts you have not shown me because nobody showed me. Show me the whole property. I want to see where I've been living. All right. Early. Early. She went upstairs. She did not read the poems that night. She sat with the book closed in her lap, and she thought about his mother, a woman she would never meet, who had given her son a book of poems with a soft spine and a single line of careful handwriting, and she thought about the word liked. My mother would have liked you. A small, modest word. Not loved, not adored, not anything dramatic, just liked. She had never in all her life heard a man say a thing to her with that much weight in so plain a word. In the morning, she came down in boots and a heavy coat Serafina had laid out for her. He was waiting by the back door with 2 thermoses of coffee. He handed her one without a word. They walked. He showed her the property, all of it. The stables, unused for years now. He had sold the horses after Matteo died. His mother had been a rider, and so had Matteo, and he had not had the heart. The old greenhouse with the cracked panes, which Serafina tended on her own initiative, coaxing tomatoes and herbs out of the stubborn soil. The small building near the water that had once been a boathouse and was now a guest house with 1 bedroom, 1 fireplace, a small kitchen. He mentioned in passing that Vincenzo had lived there for 3 years after his divorce. Vincenzo was married? Briefly, she was a very kind girl. She didn't know what she was marrying into. What happened? She found out. She stayed longer than most would have. Then she left. He is still friendly with her. She married a dentist. She is happy. He sends her flowers on her birthday every year. The dentist, I am told, finds this confusing. I bet. They walked along the ridge above the lake. He pointed out the property line, a fence line she had not known existed, running through the trees. And the neighbor's house, just visible through the pines, a small yellow cottage with smoke coming from the chimney. An older couple, he said. They had been there longer than he had. They baked in the summer, and sometimes they brought pies up the drive, and he always accepted them and sent back a bottle of wine. And that was the extent of the relationship. And it had been going on for 14 years. You take pies from your neighbors. I do. And you've never been inside their house. I have not. And they've never been inside yours. They have not. Is that a rule? It is an understanding. She filed it away. Another small fact. She was collecting small facts about him. She had been doing it for 3 weeks, and she had not yet asked herself what she was doing with them. She was, she suspected, building something. She did not know yet what the shape of it was. At the far end of this property, beyond a stand of oaks that had shed their leaves weeks ago, there was a small stone building. Not a chapel, too small for that. A mausoleum, maybe, but it did not look like a tomb. It had a plain wooden door and no markings on the outside. He stopped a few yards short of it. Matteo, he said. She did not answer. He is not buried here. He is buried in Queens with my mother. This is where I kept his things, his books, his letters, some clothes, the things that did not fit in my mother's apartment after she died. I built this so that the things would have a place. I come out here sometimes. Not often. We don't have to go in. I was not going to take you in. I was going to show you it was here and then tell you it was here. That was all. She nodded. They stood for a moment. I'm sorry, she said, about him. I know. I never say that to people. I was always told it was empty. When people said it, I'm sorry for your loss, it used to make me want to punch them. When my mother died. I don't know why I said it just now. Don't apologize for saying it. I wasn't. I was explaining. It did not feel empty, he said, when you said it, just now. She looked at him. He was not looking at her. He was looking at the little stone building. The wind was moving his hair. Can I ask you something? Yes. Your mother, Anna, how did she die? Slowly, he said. She was sick for a long time, almost 5 years. Matteo had been gone 6 years by then. She had outlived her youngest son for 6 years, and she told me, toward the end, that she was not sorry to be going. I was sorry. I am still sorry, but I could not argue with her. Were you with her? Yes. At the end, good. It was not good, but it was right. They walked back. At the house, they stamped the snow off their boots on the back step. Serafina had made something warm. It smelled like cardamom and oranges. And they sat in the small breakfast room and did not talk much, and she drank 2 cups of whatever it was, and it was the warmest she had felt in her body in weeks. That night, she went to the library to return the book of poems. She had not read them. She was not going to read them that night. She put the book back on the side table where he had left it for her, and she found a different one. A novel, thick, something about a lighthouse, and she curled up in the chair by the fire to read. She did not hear him come in. He was very good at that. He was suddenly just there, in the other chair, with his own book. "I should have knocked," he said. "It's your library? That isn't how it works in this house? I'm fine, read." He read. She read. The fire cracked. An hour passed, maybe an hour and a half. She looked up at the clock eventually and was surprised by how late it was. He was still reading. His face in the firelight was not a young face. He was not, she realized, a young man. She had been thinking of him as some kind of abstract, the stranger from the cathedral, the man in the study on the night of the convoy. And she had not let herself look at him very much as a person who was aging, who would age, who had shoulders that had carried things, and would keep carrying things. "Raphael." "Yes." "The last time you were happy. When was it?" He put the book down. He thought about it. "In what sense?" "In any sense. Whichever one comes to you first." "A Sunday," he said. 10 years ago. I was in Rome with my mother. Matteo had been gone about a year. She had insisted on the trip. She had not wanted to spend the anniversary in New York. I took her. We walked to a church on the Aventine, near where she had lived as a child. She had not been in that church in 50 years. We sat in a back pew. She did not pray. She just sat. I held her hand. After a while, she said, "I am going to be all right." And for about 5 minutes on a Sunday in June, I believed her. I believed her for 5 minutes. I have not been happier than those 5 minutes since. "Oh, why?" "No reason. I was just asking. You do not do anything without a reason." "Maybe not." "What's yours?" "I'm trying to figure out if you know how to be happy or if you've forgotten how." A long pause. "I don't know," he said. "Okay. Is that a problem?" "It's not a problem. I was asking." "What about you?" "What about me?" "Last time you were happy." She thought about it. Really thought. She tried to be honest. 19, she said. I was at a concert. It was outside, at this little venue upstate. It was summer. I was with a boy I wasn't really dating. He was a friend, and some other friends. It was one of those nights where everything was fine. Nothing was great. Nothing was terrible. I just liked being where I was. I did not want to be anywhere else, and I did not want to be doing anything else, and I was not waiting for the night to end. I have not had that particular feeling since. I've had fine. I've had this is pleasant. I have not had I do not want to be anywhere else, not once, since I was 19. Barsi Mama's sim. Why not? Because I stopped believing it was a thing you could have. You stopped? Yeah. When? When my mother died. When my father started drinking. When I figured out that nothing I did in that house was going to make him stop. When Victor showed up. When I realized that no matter what I did, I was going to be a thing in a room that somebody else was in charge of. All of those, in some order, over a couple of years. I don't know which one was the last straw. I stopped hoping, is what I mean. I stopped thinking a life could feel that way for me. And once you stop thinking that, you stop looking for it, and then you don't find it. That isn't a deep insight. It's just the math. He was quiet for a while. You have nice math, he said. She laughed. She didn't mean to. That is the worst compliment I have ever received. It is also the most sincere. I can tell. Elara. Yes. I would like to tell you something. All right. He set his book down. He put his hands flat on his knees. He looked at the fire. He did not look at her. When I told you that I saw your photograph in May and decided you were not going to die, I told you the truth, but I did not tell you the whole truth. The whole truth is that I saw your photograph in May, and I decided you were not going to die. And I also decided that I was going to be in the cathedral when you were married, and I was going to stand at the back, and I was going to watch, and I was not going to do anything. I was going to let it happen. I was going to let you marry him. I had already been putting the pieces in place to take him down. The wedding would have been a few weeks of inconvenience for you. And then you would have been a widow, and you would have been taken care of financially, and the world would have moved on. I had decided that. I planned that. For 6 months, I planned that. And then the morning of the wedding, I woke up at 5, and I sat on the edge of my bed, and I could not do it. He paused. I could not let you walk down that aisle, Ilara. I could not let you say the words. I could not let him put a ring on your hand. I sat on the edge of my bed for 2 hours trying to argue myself into it, and I could not argue myself into it. And at 7, I called Vincenzo and I told him the plan had changed. He was not happy. He had 12 hours to rebuild an operation. He did it. But he was not happy, and he was right not to be happy, because what I did was not rational, Ilara. What I did was not strategic. What I did was personal. I had no right to make it personal. It was your life, not mine. And I made a personal decision with your life, and it worked. And you are sitting in my library tonight, and I am telling you about it, because I promised you I would not lie to you again, and if I do not tell you this, I am lying to you by omission. And I would rather tell you and have you look at me like I have just confessed a crime than not tell you and feel it on my teeth every time we sit in this room together. That is what I wanted to tell you. That is all. She did not say anything for a long time. She looked at him. He was still looking at the fire. The line of his jaw was very still. His hands, on his knees, were not moving. Raphael. Yes. Look at me. He looked. You said I could not do it. Yes. You could have done it. You were going to. You decided you couldn't. Those are two different things. You keep describing the second one like it was a failure. It was. No. Ilara, no. Listen, it was a choice. You keep saying you made a personal decision with my life. You made a personal decision with your own life. You decided you were not going to be the kind of man who watched a stranger walk down an aisle to a monster when you had the power to stop it. That wasn't a crime. That was the first time in a long time you were not a man who did the cold thing because the cold thing worked. And I don't know how to tell you. I am not in this house because you made a mistake. I am in this house because you did not make one. Are you hearing me? I hear you. Do you believe me? I am trying. Try harder. He looked at her. She held his eyes. She did not blink. She thought about the photograph he had described, the one of her in the green dress at the restaurant, smiling, already having decided to die. And she thought about the morning he was describing now. A man sitting on the edge of his bed at 5 in the morning, trying to talk himself into letting her be alone with Victor Marchetti for the rest of her short life, and failing. She could not hold both things at the same time without something in her chest moving in a way she did not have a name for. Okay, she said. Okay? Okay, I heard you. Thank you for telling me. I'm not going anywhere. Not tonight, not this week. All right. Okay. Okay. She looked down at her book. She had at some point closed it. She didn't remember doing that. The room felt very small suddenly, and the fire felt very loud. I'm going to go upstairs, she said. All right. It's not because of what you said. I understand. No, listen. It's not because of it. It's because I need to sit with it, not run from it. Sit with it, by myself. That's different. I want you to know the difference. I know the difference. Good. She stood. She hesitated at the door. She looked back. He was still in the chair. He had not moved. He was watching her the way he watched her when he did not think she could see him, not with any one thing in his face, just with all of him. Raphael. Yes. You were going to let me marry him. I was. And then you didn't. And then I didn't. Okay. She left. She lay in bed that night with her eyes open, and she did not read the poems, and she did not sleep for a long time. She thought about a man on the edge of a bed at 5 in the morning. She thought about her own mother, who had left her a handwritten note that said, I'm sorry. She thought about the choice Raphael had made and the choice he had not made, and the space between those two choices, which was the space she was now living in. She thought about the fact that he had asked her 3 weeks ago in the same bed, sister bed downstairs, to decide who she was when nobody was telling her who to be. And she realized, with a kind of quiet shock, that she had been doing it. She had been doing it for 3 weeks. She had stopped waiting to be told. She thought about going down the hall. She did not go. She turned on her side. She looked at the doorway. She thought about how it would feel to cross that distance, to walk down the hallway, to knock on a door she had never knocked on. She thought about it for a long time. She almost got up. She did not. Not because she did not want to, because she knew, with a clarity that surprised her, that she had not yet earned that choice. Not from him, from herself. She was not going to cross a hallway in a house that was not hers because her chest was loud. She was going to cross it, if she crossed it, when she had nothing loud in her chest, when it was quiet, when it was clear, when she knew exactly what she was doing and why. That was the new rule. She had just made it. She closed her eyes. She slept eventually. She dreamed of the small boat on the lake, moving across the silver water, and a voice she could not place saying, "This is not that room." In the morning, he was not in the breakfast room. Serafina said he had gone into the city at 6 to meet with someone about something and would be back by dinner. Alara drank her coffee by the window. The lake was the color of pewter. The dock was empty. The light at the end of it, she noticed for the first time, had not been on last night. She did not know when he had stopped turning it on. She had not noticed its absence until now. She wondered what that meant. She did not ask herself too hard. Some questions she was learning, you let the house answer for you, in its own time, in its own way. She finished her coffee. She went for a walk. The snow was still on the ground in the shaded places. Her boots crunched. She went all the way around the property by herself, along the paths he had shown her yesterday, and she did not see a single guard, not because they were hiding, but because they were not there. At the little stone building beyond the oaks, she stopped. She did not go in. She stood in front of the wooden door with her hands in her pockets, and she said, very quietly, to a man she had never met, "I'm sorry." It was not empty. She had been wrong about that too. She walked back to the house. He came back at 7, later than he'd said, and she was already in the small dining room when she heard the car in the drive. She did not stand up. She did not look at the door. She sat with her hands around a glass of water, and she listened to the sounds a house makes when the person it was built for comes home. The side door, the boots on the mat, a quiet word to somebody in the hallway, the soft closing of a closet where a coat was hung. He came in unbuttoning his cuffs. His hair was damp. He had driven himself, she realized. The driver was not with him tonight. "You waited," he said. "I waited." "You didn't have to." "I know." He looked at her for a moment. She did not know what her face was doing. She had been sitting there thinking for nearly an hour, and she had not arrived anywhere except more sure of the place she had started. He sat. Serafina came in with the food, something simple, a pasta with oil and garlic and flakes of pepper, a salad that was mostly leaves, and she set it down without making small talk, and she left without making small talk, and Alara understood, without needing to be told, that Serafina had decided something in the last few days and had decided to stop being present in a way that asked anything of the two of them. She was leaving them alone. She had been leaving them alone for a while. It was a kindness Alara had not registered until tonight. "How was the city?" Alara said. "Tedious, necessary. I spoke with Cheryl Alvaro for 90 minutes. I signed some papers. I ate a sandwich in a parking garage. I had a disagreement with a man I have known for 20 years about whether a specific article should be allowed to run in a specific magazine. He lost the disagreement. The article was about you. The article was about me. What did you decide?" "I decided it should not run yet. In a year, if they still want to run it, fine. Not now. Not with your name 3 paragraphs in." "My name was in it." "Your name was in it." "How?" "Your name was always going to come into it eventually. You walked out of a cathedral on the arm of a stranger in front of 300 witnesses, Alara. That is not a thing a city forgets. I have been managing the tide of it for 3 weeks. I can manage it for another year. After that, you will need to make your own peace with what the public decides about you, because I cannot hold the whole ocean back forever. That is one of the things I wanted to talk to you about tonight. Okay, but not during dinner. All right, they ate. It was a good meal. She had not been this hungry in days. He noticed, she saw him notice, and he did not comment on it, which she appreciated. He poured her a glass of wine, and she drank half of it. He drank a little more than that. Neither of them drank enough to dull anything. She told him about her walk, about the little stone building. She did not tell him what she had said to his brother's door. She did not know yet whether that was something she was going to tell him. She thought she probably would, eventually. Not tonight. After dinner, he said, "There is something I did not do yet that I want to do tonight, if you are up for it." "What?" "I want to talk to your father." She put her wine glass down. "Now?" "On the phone, briefly, with you in the room. Not on speaker. I want to say what I came to say without making him feel watched. But with you in the room, so that when it is done, you will know exactly what was said, and you will not have to wonder. I owe you that. I owe him that. I have been putting it off for a week because I did not know if you were ready. You told me on the dock you wanted to see him eventually. I am not asking you to see him. I am asking you to be in the room when I close a thing that needs to be closed." She considered, "Why tonight?" "Because the article I killed today was the last piece of my own life I needed to handle before I could turn my attention entirely to the next thing, whatever that turns out to be. Because I do not want to carry this conversation with your father into whatever comes next. Because I want to walk into the rest of my year without a phone call on my list that I am afraid to make." "Are you afraid to make it?" "A little." "Why?" "Because I am afraid I am going to be crueler than I should be, and you are going to hear it, and I am not going to be able to take it back." "Then don't be crueler than you should be. That is your job tonight." Meaning if I start to be, you put your hand on my arm and I stop. That is all I am asking. I am not asking you to speak to him. I am asking you to keep me honest in the speaking." "Okay," she said. "Okay? Okay." They went into the library. He poured no more wine. He gave her a chair near the fire, close enough that when she put her feet down, she was within arm's reach of him, and he sat on the edge of the desk with the phone in his hand, and he did not dial. He sat with the phone. He looked at it for a long moment. "The number," he said. "What about it?" "I was expecting to be angrier than I am. I thought I would be vibrating. I am not vibrating. I am ready. I think that is because you are in the room. I wanted to tell you that before I dialed." "All right." He dialed. It rang 3 times. On the 4th, her father's voice came on, thin and uncertain and too bright, the voice he used when he did not know who was on the other end. "Hello?" "Mr. Vance, it's Raphael DeLuca." A long silence. "Oh, is this a bad time?" No, No. I told you the other day that I would call." "You did, yes." "I'm calling." "Yes." "Alara is here in the room with me. You are not on speaker. I am not going to put you on speaker. She can hear my side of the conversation. She does not want to speak with you. She has told me that, and she has not changed her mind, and that is a thing I am not going to try to change for her. Do you understand, Mr. Vance?" "Yes." "Good. I'm going to say a few things. When I am done, I am going to hang up, and you will not hear from me again unless your daughter asks me to speak with you. Is that clear?" "Yes." "First thing, your debts are paid, all of them. The arrangement Mr. Marchetti had with your creditors is void. The instruments that allowed him to claim any stake in your house, your savings, or your daughter are void. I handled that personally. I am telling you this so that you understand there is no man on his way to your front door tonight. There is no man on his way tomorrow night. You are, for the first time in perhaps a decade, not owned by anyone. That is the last gift I will ever give you, and I did not give it to you. I gave it to her. You are simply the man who lives in the house she grew up in. That is the whole of your relationship to this gift. Do you understand?" "Yes, Yes." "Second thing, I am not going to tell you that what you did to her was unforgivable. That is not mine to say. It is hers. If she ever decides it is forgivable, that will be between the two of you, and I will have nothing to do with it. If she decides it is not, that will also be between the two of you, and I will have nothing to do with it. But I'm going to tell you, because I suspect nobody in your life has, and because I think at some level you have been waiting for someone to... You sold her, Mr. Vance. You can dress it up any way you like. You can tell yourself it was a complicated marriage or a necessary arrangement or the only way to keep your head above water. You sold her. You handed her to a man you knew was dangerous because you were more afraid of your own life than you were of hers. That is the true thing. I'm saying it out loud because I think it needs to be said out loud exactly once in your life by someone who is not her. I am doing it so she does not have to. Basim. There was a small, broken sound from the other end of the line. Alara did not move. She watched Raphael's face. His face had not changed. His voice had not gotten louder. He was not enjoying this. He was doing it the way a man moves a heavy piece of furniture out of a doorway, steadily, without ceremony, because it needs to be moved. Third thing, Raphael said. If the day comes when she is willing to see you, you will not come to her. She will come to you, or you will meet somewhere she chooses at a time she sets for as long or as short as she wants. You will not pressure her. You will not write her long letters. You will not use other people to carry messages. If there is a birthday, if there is a holiday, if there is news, you will send a short, unemotional message, and you will accept no response as a response. You will let her decide the pace of this for the rest of your life. Are we clear? Yes. Fourth thing, and then I am done. There's a woman named Serafina in my house. She has been in my house for 9 years. She has a sister in White Plains. Her sister owns a bakery. Once a month, Serafina goes to that bakery and spends an afternoon with her sister and comes home. That is a small, ordinary thing that you, Mr. Vance, have never, in my view, done for your own daughter. You have never just been with her, without asking anything of her, without using her as an audience, without wanting something from her to carry your own weight. If she ever lets you near her life again, I would like you to try that. Just try it. Sit with her in a room and want nothing. That is the last piece of advice I have for you, and I am giving it because you will not get another from me. Silence. Harold Vance made a sound like a man beginning a sentence and then abandoning it. Then, very quietly, he said, "Thank you. Do not thank me. All right. Goodbye, Mr. Vance." Goodbye. Raphael hung up. He stood with the phone in his hand for a moment. He set it back in the cradle. He turned to her. He did not say anything. He was waiting to see what she was going to say. Elara sat in the chair with her hands in her lap, and she did not cry. She had been prepared to. She had told herself on the walk to the library that she might, and that if she did, it was all right. She was not going to be ashamed of it. She did not. She sat and she looked at him, and she felt something. Not relief, not triumph. Something quieter, like a long breath she had been taking for years without realizing she was taking it, finally reaching its end. "You were not crueler than you should have been," she said. "No? No. I was afraid I would be." "I know, you weren't." "All right. Raphael." "Yes." "Come here." He came over to her. He did not sit in the other chair. He sat on the floor in front of her, which surprised her. He did it easily, the way a man sits who has sat on a lot of floors in his life. And he rested his forearms on his knees and he looked up at her. His eyes in the firelight were not gray anymore. They were some other color she did not have the vocabulary for. "I've been thinking about something all day," she said. "Tell me, when you said last night that you were going to let me marry him, that you had decided to, that you had planned for it. I went to bed with it, and I woke up with it, and I walked around it for 10 hours, and here is what I think. I think most men in your position, most people in your position, would not have told me. There was no reason to tell me. The plan changed. I was not harmed by the plan. I would never have known. You told me because you could not live with not telling me. Because you have decided I am a person you tell the truth to even when the truth does you no favors. I do not think you understand how rare that is. I have lived my whole life around people who managed me, who calibrated what they gave me, who parceled out the truth in portions designed to keep me useful. My father did it. Victor did it. Even my mother did it at the end, because she was so tired and she did not want to worry me. You are the only person I have ever sat across from. In my whole life, who has looked at me and decided that the version of me you were building in your head was allowed to know the real things? The ugly ones. The ones that make you look bad. I cannot tell you what that has done to me. I cannot tell you. I do not have the words. I am still assembling them. He did not answer. She went on. You asked me last night what you wanted, and you said you couldn't tell me because I was in your house in clothes you had bought, and you would not hand me a thing with strings on it. Okay, I heard that. I understood it. I respected it. But I want you to hear me now. I am not in this house tonight because I have nowhere else to go. You gave me somewhere else to go 3 weeks ago. I am in this house tonight because I decided, walking the property alone this morning with no guards watching me, that this is the only place I want to be right now. That is not because of what you have done for me. That is not gratitude. Gratitude is a thing I feel for Serafina, who knocks. Gratitude is a thing I feel for Vincenzo, who made me laugh on a day I did not think I could laugh. What I feel for you is not gratitude, Raphael. I do not know what it is. I have not had a word for it yet, and I am not going to make one up tonight just to have it said. But I'm telling you that it is not gratitude. And I'm telling you that I am not leaving tomorrow. I am not leaving next week. I am not leaving because I have decided I am not leaving, and the deciding was mine, and the staying is going to be mine, and the going, when and if it comes, is going to be mine. You do not have to protect me from my own choices anymore. I am done being something that chooses nothing. He looked up at her for a long time. She watched the small muscles in his face work. She watched him trying to find a way to speak and not finding one. His hands, on his knees, were very still. He swallowed once. He opened his mouth and closed it. He looked down at the rug. All right, he said finally. All right? All right, Ilara. I hear you. Good. May I say something? Yes. I am in love with you. The room for a second did not have air in it. He said it plainly, not like a line, not like a reveal. He said it the way a man says, I think it is going to rain tomorrow. Like he had been holding the fact for a while and was simply putting it down, at last, because the holding of it had become more work than the saying. I have been for some time, he said. I do not know for how long. I know it was before the night the convoy left. I know it was after the morning you came down to breakfast in that sweater and asked me to talk. I am not telling you this because I want you to say anything back. I am telling you because you said a minute ago that you do not have a word for what you feel. I have a word for what I feel. It would be dishonest of me to not give it to you. When you are sitting in a chair in my library at 10 o'clock at night telling me you choose to be here. That is all. That is what I wanted to say. She put her hand on the side of his face. She had not planned to. Her hand just moved. She felt the stubble along his jaw and the warmth of his skin and the faint line where his ear met his hairline. And he closed his eyes, and he did not lean into the touch, and he did not lean away from it. He just stayed where he was, breathing, and she thought, this is what a man feels like when he has been bracing for years and is deciding right now, for the first time, to stop. Raphael. Yes, I'm going to say a thing, and I want you to let me say all of it before you answer. Nod. He nodded. I don't know what I feel yet. Not all of it. I'm not going to lie and tell you I do, because you deserve the thing you gave me, which is the truth. But I know I did not sleep last night, and I was not sad. I know I walked all the way around this property today and thought about you for 3 hours and at no point wanted to be anywhere else. I know that when you came through that door tonight and I heard your voice in the hall, something in me unfolded, and it has been folded for a very long time. I do not know what that adds up to. I know what direction it is pointing. That is all I can give you tonight. She took her hand back slowly because she wanted to see his face. Is that enough? She said. Yes. Is it? It is enough tonight. It is enough for a long time. I am not... He looked up at her. His eyes were wet. It was barely noticeable. She noticed. I am not rushing you anywhere, Ilara. I have been waiting for you to be free long enough that I am in no hurry for anything. I'm only glad that we are in the same room tonight. That is already more than I expected. Okay. Okay. He stood. He was careful not to make it feel like an ending. He offered her a hand. She took it. He helped her up out of the chair. They stood there for a moment, his hand around hers, not moving. It was not a romantic moment. It was something more unsettled than that, more tentative, and for that reason more important. It was two people standing in the middle of a room that had finally become theirs to stand in. "I'm going to walk you upstairs," he said. "Good. Not because I think anything is going to happen at the top of the stairs. I know. Because I want to walk you upstairs. I know, Raphael." They walked upstairs. At her door, he stopped. She turned. He was a foot away. Not more. She could feel the heat of him. She could smell whatever he used. Something clean, almost herbal, like his car had smelled the night he took her out of the cathedral. She had not consciously remembered the smell. Some part of her had remembered. Some part of her had been remembering it for weeks. She lifted her face. He leaned in. He kissed her once, very gently, at the corner of her mouth. Not on the mouth. At the corner of it. It was the most restrained and the most ferocious thing she had ever felt a man do. She did not move. She could feel the tension in him, the absolute shaking restraint of it, the long muscle of a decision being held, and she understood, without his having to say it, that he was giving her back the exact choice he had taken from her at the altar, that he was saying, without words, "You have not chosen yet. Choose later, with clearer eyes, without my hand on you." He stepped back. "Good night, Ilara." "Good night." She went into her room. She closed the door. She did not lock it. She stood with her back against it, and she put her hand to the corner of her mouth, and she stayed there for a long time with her eyes closed. She slept better than she had slept in a year. In the morning, there was sun on the lake. She woke up late for the first time in the house. 10:15, the light already high. And when she went downstairs, he was in the breakfast room with the paper, which meant, she realized as soon as she saw it, that he had gone out and bought one. There had not been a paper in this house in 11 years. There was one today. "What? What? You have a paper. I had Vincenzo bring one." "Why?" "Because you said on your first morning here that you wanted a paper. I have been thinking about that for a week. I decided this morning that I had been unkind about it. The house has rules. Some of them should be reviewed." She sat. She pulled the paper toward her. It was folded to an inside page. A small story. 3 columns. No photograph of her. Thank whatever was in charge of luck. About the ongoing fallout from the Marchetti indictments. His name was not in it. Her name was not in it. Ortiz's name was. A small, quiet mention. A former associate, now deceased, whose records were instrumental. A man's 3 children, somewhere in the country, under a name that was not theirs anymore, would see that line and know it was him. That was enough. "You used to buy these every day," she said. "I did?" "Why did you stop?" "I stopped for a reason I do not remember. I am restarting because I do remember why you might want them." She looked up at him. "Raphael?" "Yes." "You're going to drive me somewhere today." "Am I?" "I want to go somewhere. I don't know where. Out. Not a city, a diner, a town. I want to sit in a booth somewhere and eat bad eggs and look at strangers and come home. I want to do a small, ordinary thing. I have not done a small, ordinary thing in about a decade, and today I would like to." "All right. You're coming." "Am I?" "Yes. You're coming, and you're going to sit in a booth with me, and you're going to order the worst thing on the menu, and you are going to eat it, and you are going to tell the waitress that it is delicious. That is the whole plan." "All right. Good." He drove. He drove himself, without the driver, in a car she had not been in before. A small dark SUV with the dust of real use on it. He did not take a highway. He took back roads. She watched the country go by the window. She had not been outside the gates of the property in 3 weeks. The feeling of moving through the world, of being seen by people who did not know who she was, who would never know, was extraordinary. It was almost physical. She rolled her window down 2 inches and felt the cold on her face and could have cried with the simple pleasure of it, and didn't, and then almost cried at not crying, and then laughed instead, out loud, which startled him. "What?" "Nothing. Tell me." "I am 26 years old, and this morning I got in a car and I went for a drive. People do this every day. I have been pretending my whole life that I did not want things like this. It turns out I did." He glanced at her. "Good," he said. They went to a diner in a small town 40 minutes away. She did not know the name of the town. She did not ask. The diner had vinyl booths patched with duct tape and a laminated menu with photographs of the food. The waitress called them both omelets. Alara ordered pancakes. He ordered a Western omelet. Neither of them ordered the worst thing on the menu, because the menu, it turned out, had no bad things, just tired ones. He ate his omelet. She ate 3 bites of her pancakes and pushed the rest around and drank coffee that tasted like it had been made at dawn and kept hot ever since. It was the best meal of her life. She told him so. He smiled, a whole smile, not the almost smile, an actual smile. And for a second she saw what he had looked like at 20, before his brother, before the 11 years. "I want to ask you something," she said. "Yes." "Are you going to keep doing what you do?" "That is a real question." "It is." He sat back. He thought for a while. "I'm going to keep a version of what I do," he said. "The parts of it that are businesses, shipping, real estate, some investments I am not going to explain in a diner. The parts of it that are not businesses, I am winding those down, quietly, carefully. It will take a year. Some of it will take longer. Not because I have suddenly become a good man, Alara. I want to be clear about that. I am not a good man. I am a man who has spent 30 years building a life around a single dead brother, and the brother has now been more or less avenged, and what is left is what is left. I am not going to pretend there is a version of me that is soft. I am saying that the things that required me to be a specific kind of hard, those were specific, and they are over, and I am going to spend the next few years finding out who I am in the absence of them. That is as honest an answer as I have. Okay, does that worry you? Some, yes. All right, that's fair. But it's not a deal breaker. All right, I am not naming what we are, she said. I am telling you what it is not. It is not a deal breaker. That is the only promise I can make today, and I am making it. That is an enormous promise, Alara. Is it? For me, yes. Okay, then take it. I am taking it. They drove home in the afternoon. The light was long and gold on the pine trees. The lake, when they came around the last bend of the drive, was burning with it. She put her forehead against the cold window and watched the house come into view and thought, I live here right now. I do not know for how long, but right now I live here. At the house, Serafina was at the side door with a cup of tea and a quiet expression. She looked at Alara. She looked at Raphael. She looked at both of them, and then she did something Alara had not seen her do before. She smiled briefly, a real smile, and she said, Welcome back, Miss Vance. You can call me Alara, Serafina. I know I can. Then start. All right, Miss Alara. That is the worst compromise I have ever been offered. I am old, Miss Alara. You will have to be patient. Alara laughed. It was an easy laugh. It surprised her. Days became weeks. Weeks became 2 months. The papers kept arriving at the house in the morning. Vincenzo came up for dinner sometimes, and she liked him, and he liked her. And he told her, once, over a glass of wine, that in 20 years of knowing Raphael, he had never seen him so quiet in a good way. She did not know what to do with that. She filed it away with the other small facts she was accumulating, the ones that, she now understood, were not a project with an end date. They were just her life. She was allowed to collect them forever if she wanted. She saw her father in the spring. She drove to his house herself. She did not let Raphael come. Raphael did not ask to. She sat on the front porch of the house she had grown up in, and her father came out with 2 mugs of coffee, and his hands were trembling, and he did not drink. He asked her how she was. She said she was all right. He asked her where she was staying. She said she was staying at a house by a lake. He asked her if she was happy. She thought about that for a long time. She said she was, most days, on her way to it. That was the most honest thing she could give him. He cried, briefly, quietly, into his sleeve. She did not reach for him. She let him cry. When he was done, he said he was sorry. He said it plainly. He did not explain it. She said, I know. That was all she gave him that day. It was more than either of them had expected. She drove away at 3, and she sat in her car at the end of his street for a while before she turned the key, and she thought, I can do this again sometime. I do not have to do it again soon. That was enough to know. When she got back to the lake, it was almost dark. He was on the dock. He was sitting on the bench at the end of it, the way she had used to sit there, with his elbows on his knees and his hands loose between them. He did not turn around when he heard her. She walked the length of the dock. The boards were damp. The light at the end of the dock had been turned on. He had started turning it on again a few weeks back in the evenings, without telling her he had started, and it threw a small yellow puddle around them. She sat down next to him. How was it? Hard. Okay. Hard. Good. I'm tired. I know. She leaned slowly until her head was against his shoulder. He did not move. He did not reach for her. He let her lean. They sat like that for a long time, watching the last color go out of the sky, and she thought about a lot of things, in no particular order. Her mother, her father, Daniel Ortiz reading a book about patience on a train, Mateo De Luca in a car going into a river, a girl in a green dress at a restaurant in May who had already decided to die, a man on the edge of a bed at 5 in the morning deciding he was not going to let her. She thought about how many kinds of cages there are, how many you get locked into without noticing, how many you help build for yourself, and how the opposite of a cage, it turned out, was not the absence of walls. It was the presence of a door you could walk through either way, whenever you wanted. That was the thing she had not understood at the altar. That was the thing she understood now. Raphael. Yes. I'm not going anywhere. He was quiet for a long moment. I know, he said. You know. I have known for a little while. How? Because you have stopped saying you are not going anywhere. When you said it at the beginning, it was always a question. It stopped being a question a few weeks ago. I did not want to point it out in case you had not noticed. I noticed this morning. All right. Is that a problem? Elara? Yes. That is not a problem. He turned his head. She lifted hers from his shoulder. She looked at him. His face was close. Not as close as it had been at her door 2 months ago. Not as far as it had been in the cathedral. Somewhere in the middle. The right distance. She closed it. She kissed him. On the mouth this time, and for more than a second. He did not move for a moment. Surprised, she realized. Actually surprised. And then he did. And his hand came up to her cheek, and his palm was warm, and he did not rush, and she did not rush. And when they broke apart, her forehead was against his, and he was breathing a little unevenly, and she was smiling, and he was almost smiling. The almost smile that had become, over the course of 2 months, a smile she saw more often than she did not. Okay, she said. Okay. That was my choice. I know. I am telling you anyway. Thank you for telling me. You're welcome. He laughed, just once. A short, startled laugh. It was a very good sound. It was the kind of sound you wanted to hear a man make. They sat on the dock a long time. Eventually, the cold got into her coat, and he felt her shiver, and he stood, and he put his hand out, and she took it, and they walked back up the lawn to the house. She thought about the first time she had taken his hand, in a corridor in a cathedral, in a dress that was still in some landfill somewhere, with 300 witnesses on the other side of a door, and a man she had been about to marry bleeding on the floor behind her. She thought about how she had taken it then, because she did not believe she had another choice. She thought about how she was taking it now, because she did, and had many, and had chosen this one again and again and again for 2 months, and would keep choosing it tomorrow, probably, and the day after that, probably, until the day she chose otherwise, which she might or might not, which was the whole point. Inside, Serafina had lit the fire in the library. She had also, Alar noticed, laid out 2 books on the low table. The book of poems, above the waterline, the one he had given her, and a new one, a novel, its cover unbroken. Somebody was going to read one of them tonight. Neither of them had decided which yet. She took off her coat. He took off his. They sat in the 2 chairs by the fire that had become, without discussion, their chairs. He picked up the novel. She picked up the poems. She opened to the first one. She read it slowly. She read it again. She did not know if it was good. She knew it had been chosen for her 20 years ago by a woman she would never meet, and given to her now by a man who had told her the truth when it cost him. And that was enough for it to be worth reading once. She looked up. He was looking at her. What? Nothing. Raphael? I am happy, he said quietly. That is what the expression is. I was trying to remember. I was looking at you and I was trying to remember. I remembered, that's all. Oh, is that all right? Yes, she said. That is all right. She turned the page. Somewhere outside, the light at the end of the dock was still burning. Somewhere inside, a woman who had once been walked down an aisle toward the rest of her small, souled life was sitting in a chair by a fire in a house she had chosen. Next to a man she had chosen, reading a book by a poet she had not yet decided about, with the whole evening ahead of her, and the morning after it, and the morning after that, and every morning after that, for as long as she wanted and no longer. And the choosing, every day, the choosing, all of it, finally, hers. She was not trapped. She had never been less trapped in her life. And in the small private space behind her ribs where she had once kept a girl in a too-tight wedding dress trying not to scream, there was now only the quiet hum of a person who had walked out of one life and had taken, slowly, carefully, on her own terms, the trouble to build another. It was not a perfect life. He was not a perfect man. She was not a perfect woman. They were going to fight, she understood. They were going to hurt each other at some point in ways that would cost both of them. That was what it meant to be two people who had decided to stay. She looked at him over the top of the book. He felt her look. He glanced up. What? Nothing, she said. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you're here too. Good. Read your poem, Ilara. I am. Good. She read her poem. Outside, the night settled over the lake, and the light at the end of the dock kept burning, steady and small and chosen, and somewhere in the country the last pieces of a broken empire were quietly being filed into boxes by people she would never meet. And somewhere in another city, a man who had once put his hand around her wrist like a collar was learning, for the first time in his life, what it felt like to lose. And somewhere in a house in New Jersey, a woman named Grace, with flour on her cuffs, was putting her children to bed without knowing that a man she had loved at 22 had been quietly paid for all these years by his brother, who had just, that afternoon, made his last payment on her rent because he no longer felt he had to. All of it was going on. All of it was always going on. In the library by the lake, a woman turned a page and a man turned a page, and neither of them said anything, and neither of them needed to. The fire burned down. Neither of them got up to fix it. That, she understood finally, was what happy looked like. Not a moment. Not an arrival, just a room you had chosen, and a page you turned, and the freedom, quiet, ordinary, endlessly surprising, to stay exactly as long as you wanted, and to leave the moment you didn't, and to know, with absolute clarity, that no one in the world would stop you either way. She turned another page. She stayed.